17th, 2019. It is 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hertz?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelson?
Here.
Commissioner Martin? Here.
Commissioners, any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, if you will please silence your cell phones, and any conversations you want to have, please step out and we won't hold it against you. It's time for public requests. Please step to the microphone and give your name and address and let us hear from you.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Kathy Cottrell. I live at 1015 Northwest 6th Terrace, and I'm here representing Friends of Gumbo Limbo. I just wanted to say that we had the opportunity to meet with Mike Calvert last week and reviewed some of the latest due diligence that we've been doing on getting some of our numbers down on the master plan, and really excited to continue to work on that with the city and the district. And also we wanted to just thank those who represented Gumbo Limbo at the needs assessment meeting this past Wednesday in support of continuing to do some continuous improvement at Gumbo Limbo, and we look forward to continuing that process as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Hello, for the record, Robert Duquesne, 5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace. So let's review where we are with the golf course after the joint meeting and the last meeting of the City Council workshop. First, the majority of the City Council is certainly not going to agree to the proposed design based upon what we've heard, not only in those two meetings, but the prior two meetings. I think that actually Tommy Fazio did an excellent job of going through some of the issues that they had. But for whatever reason, I think they want to have more input, especially since it's going to be their money. I think that Tommy and Wayne also provided their willingness to go along with, what it's going to take from the city to get this thing done. So I would hope that they don't have to start from scratch and go find another architect. Obviously, you've done the hard work, I think, in that regard, and hopefully they can take care of that. I think that also I saw the term sheets that you're proposing, and it seems like a shot in the dark based on what I have seen. I don't know how you all feel. I guess we'll learn that soon. But unless you've talked to the majority of the City Council members, from what we've seen so far, it certainly doesn't look like that 10 million, 20 million, 15 million, 5 million is something that they're going to give you to do that. Unfortunately, the district does not have the funds to easily complete the project in a timely manner. Again, looking at today's meeting package, a 5-year plan for possibly financing, that certainly doesn't seem too agreeable to most golfers, I can tell you. That also would certainly stretch the resources of the district based upon what we've heard from you all, as well as Merv Timberlake in the past. So it really doesn't make sense. Also, the other option is to raise taxes. I don't think too many people in the city would be happy to see taxes raised. Using the analogy that we've seen here in the past of house construction, you bought the land, you went to the architect, and the architect says, here you go, here's what you want. And now you realize the price is out of your range. So what do you do? One of the things also I saw on the agenda here was to possibly retain someone to help with bond financing. I think that's certainly getting the cart in front of the horse, because until you have some indication that the city is going to be willing to cooperate, I don't think it would make much sense to spend more money on getting prepared for something that may never happen. So again, we get down to what's in the best interest of the district as well as the residents. And I think that the district wants to continue operating like they have in the past and have funds available for Patch Reef and other projects that they have, maybe even some money for Gumbo Limbo, maybe not 20 or 30 million, of course, but some money for your normal projects, it's going to be very difficult to continue operating. So hopefully you can come up with an agreement with the city that will leave you some input. I don't think that it's realistic to expect the city to go along 100% with everything you've had done so far. I think that, again, Wayne and Tommy are very, looks like very open to working, just like they were very open to working with you when they first started this process. So I think that if you have a term sheet that requires you to approve everything that, you're going to have now 10 people instead of 5 people trying to agree to something. It's going to be pretty hard to do. I think you've done the hard work. 17 architects you've interviewed for all this time. I don't think it's going to be wasted. Hopefully, certainly it's not. But we're getting close to the time, I think, where the 2020 growing season is fast going to be out of our reach. If we wait 6 weeks for the next city council meeting and 6 weeks for the next city council meeting, we're talking 2021 probably before we get any golf course. So hopefully something can be done soon, and I look forward to your cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Decay. Just to clarify for everybody, Wayne and Tommy and their team have set up appointments to meet with each city council member later on in the month, and they have some very compelling arguments and ideas to go forth with our design. So also, since you all are all here, these people listen to you. Send them emails, send them letters, let them know what you want. And you're the voters. You're the people who, put all of us in our places, and the city council as well. So the more people that they hear from, they might listen. So who else would like to speak? Go, Gary.
Hi, Barry Tatro, 3088 Northwest 27th Avenue Northwest. Did I just say it? Northwest 27th Avenue, Overton. Robert, good comments there. When we started out with this, and I think there's an inherent flaw in the way we select our vendors. I know it's state law and whatnot, but we came up with this idea of both a national, and just in the name itself implied that this was going to be, a Taj Mahal, consistent with, the other stuff we have in Boca that's just fantastic. And our new golf course should reflect those, those values of top-notch stuff for Boca Raton. Don't mean this to sound snotty, but I mean, that's where we are. That's why we pay taxes we do. And so the board went through 17 interviews, came up with Price Fazio as the most qualified. That was how it was selected, most qualified based on what you've done in the past, what you say you're going to do in terms of your subs, and whatever. We're going to build this wonderful golf course. They came up with this incredible design. My God, it's beautiful. This par 3 thing is going to be the envy of the world. It's going to be what people are going to be talking about when they leave this golf course, is that par 3, because it's going to be something no one's ever seen before, or comparable to some of the ones that are coming on market now, where it's not just a pitch and putt par 3. It's going to be something of value and maybe even a challenge, but something fun to play. In the long driving range, and then the academy and whatnot. So this is what we got. This is how much it's going to cost this man to build to his specifications, a course that was put forth to him by the district. Fine. So we came up with, notwithstanding the ridiculous price that was paid for the land, we got to get by that. We got to say that's, we did it. It's done. We got to go forward. Now, building the golf course is another thing. So, with all due respect to Price Fazio, who are not here, but maybe it's time to, if he can't get this thing straight with city council, and sell them on the fact that his course is going to be the talk of the Tri-County area, maybe nationally, but let him do what he does. He's a master artist of landscaping and design. But we got to sell this to the city council because they haven't been good following this all these months. They went almost a year without a joint session. The plans were promised last February. They just got there recently, so it kind of starts the whole process 6 months late. So, and I also think that there's a moral imperative, for the city to cough up as much money of that $65 million as it takes to make this course great, to make it what Boca wants. They need to be, I just don't understand the thinking. I really don't. And now they've got someone on their board who's advocating some 9-hole course. Because, maybe don't read it, and that's a challenge. So we got to sell this. If they can't buy it, if they won't, and I think there's a willingness on their part to chip in. I don't think that's a real issue. Just about how much and what they think is a reasonable part of the money that they're contributing towards. Is it 25 million? Or is it 20 million? 19? Fine, we'll chip in 10. Whatever, but I don't think it has to be this hard. If they can be convinced and educated, that's what he's educated on what we're trying to do, what our vision was for a golf course of a top standard, and not just here it is, pocketed $65 million, or have another $5 million, have a good time, build something for $5 million or whatever. So I'm venting a little bit. It's frustrating to have attended that meeting last week and seeing the attitudes from their side. But hopefully that Mr. Fazio and Mr. Braithwaite can sit down with them and educate them on what makes a good golf course and how it's done, how it's built. And, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Jack?
Never done this before. Jack McWalter, 1100 Northeast 2nd Terrace, right behind Madison. I've never spoken here before, so it's sort of unusual. But I'm going to play off what Susan just said, is that, invite your friends here, let them know what's going on, and those types of things. I'm part of a website called Boca First Incorporated, and many of you have never watched our website. I'm not, hawking it, but there are 2 websites in the city that are quite successful. One is called Boca Watch, run by El Sicaro, right there at the end, and great guy, and Boca First, and both of us have written articles supporting this Boca Mtg golf course. But what I did was something different. Is and you go out there and look at it now. I pulled off the tapes from November 17, 2017, when all 5 councilmen all said that they were going to take the money from $65 million for Boca Mtg and pour it into Boca Mtg. I want everybody in this room to go look at that tape. 3 of those people are on the city council now that are opposed to this. One of them campaigned, Mayor Singer, on this very issue, and he was elected by the golfing community because of this. So anyway, that's it. Good luck. We continue to support you however we can. I know Al's going to, I know I'm going to, and thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
November 17th. Thank you, Jack.
My name is Harold Chaffee, 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I want to wish everybody a belated Happy Father's Day. With all this doom and gloom, like I was ready to just panic off that. I mean, there's nothing positive said yet. Listen, you guys had a great idea. You hired the right people to do the job. You just have to go through with it. It's it, you know, every great project basically comes to a stumbling point where you basically start to question yourself, whether it should be done or it shouldn't be done. Should we cheapen it? We should put more money in it. Not do this, not do that. They laid out a plan. The only thing to do is to follow it, because they're the experts. I'm not. Neither is anybody here, or even the city council, because they certainly don't know what the hell they know about golf. They really don't listen to talk. They're scattered. It's incredible. You know, I don't know how we got this far, and then all of a sudden we backed up, I think, 15 paces. You know, it seems like we're starting all over again. Like I said, I think that we have a map, we have a goal, and we should stick with it. And I have great confidence in the world that you people can pull it through because of everything else you've done. Maybe you have to struggle a little bit longer. I heard that in GL Homes, I don't think there any rush to close on that deal, because first of all, they have to pay taxes on it, number one. Secondly, they got too many projects going on. They're even trying to move the tower. I mean, I think they're just going to stay in it, and even if you get the $650,000 to the city for basically to let them use the muni, they're going to do it. And I think if that stretches out long, it gives you an opportunity to basically save the money and do what you need to do. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Anyone else? Tom? Okay. Hearing none, public requests are now closed. We now move on to the approval of the minutes of the board meeting. The first one is the joint meeting held May 28, 2019 with the city council. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
We need it. Okay, Mr. Rollins seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Like sign for negativity? Okay, motion passes. Regular meeting held on June 3rd at 5:15. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Denied, like sign? Everybody's good, okay. So that's good, we got everybody, okay. So our first regular business item is the Boca National Golf Course, the partnership term sheets, found on page 7 of your packet. Brianne, would you like to lead us into this?
Sure. Last Monday, we attended the City Council workshop. Commissioner Ernst presented to City Council. He did a fantastic job presenting our ask. The city did not say okay to the ask, but they did give us another set of marching orders. Some of the things they asked for, and they followed it up with an email that I forwarded you guys from George Brown. They want to see the design that doesn't incorporate the abandonment of Jeffrey Street, so they need to see that revised. They want to meet with the Price Fazio team. Wayne has already set up those meetings, and they want to see the terms of our partnership, how we would define those terms. So we put together a couple of samples in your packets, and tonight, if it's your pleasure, we can certainly whiteboard it and all agree to some terms to give to the City Council as response to the items that they requested.
Commissioners, your pleasure. Craig?
Well, I guess the first question is, did everyone kind of agree with who watched in our meeting, did they agree with the concept of what we proposed? And that was give the city time to look at and understand the design. And so,
I don't think we had much choice.
that's my point. I just want to make sure you're okay with it, because I'm kind of winging it out there, and I want to make sure that I have, is that what everyone wants? Because it goes back to the question that Mr. Rollins posed at our last meeting. We asked the question, is this what the community wants? And we didn't quite answer that question. So my thought was we need to bring them up to speed, let them get up to speed, and that will lead us down the next steps. So give them, rather than kind of a forced issue, how much money and what to improve the design. So we're allowing for input on the design, and they may very well come back with input on the design that is agreeable, or with things we may not agree with. But I just want to make sure we're on the same path. Out of that meeting, we promised a couple things, and so the term sheet being one of them. And I assume that's just like a standard interlocal agreement that we've done in the past. But there's some things we should talk through. So we own that term sheet. We owe them the design team availability, and Wayne is already locked down there. We owe them the NGF updated report, so I think that's in the agenda to do. And we also owe ourselves a Board Mtg deed review or community input part of it, just to make sure that we've covered all our bases on that.
Jacob, would you like to update us on the deeds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, if I may, according to the board's direction at the last meeting, we have gone ahead and pulled some title work and then looked at some of the title exceptions from the purchase of the golf course, the acquisition. We have some of it back now that we've begun to review. There are in fact some restrictions on the parcel. One in particular stood out. This is on the Board Mtg master plan, which is a declaration of restricted covenant, which restricts the use of the property to a golf course use for some period of years. There is a mechanism built into the dedication which can be released by, I believe it's 75% of the residents within that particular community who were to sign off. But it is, and just to read, the subject tract of land shall be used only for the purpose of a golf course facility. Golf course facility is undefined. It could mean quite a number of things. In our experience, it would include the golf course area, the 9 holes, 18 holes, as the case may be. It would also include some ancillary uses, clubhouse, cart barn, all the maintenance facilities that may go along with that. There have been some other concepts that have been discussed by this board, and to the extent the board wanted to move forward with some of those other ideas, we need to look at them in the context of these restrictions. The talk about a hotel was one that came to mind, and whether or not that would fall within the permitted use under the restrictions, along with a few others. But there are, in fact, some restrictions on the property. The good news is it does permit a golf course facility, which is the primary focus of the discussion. And we're continuing to review the title exceptions to see how they may otherwise impact the board's overall direction.
Well, with these exceptions, if we did want a hotel, that would require a 75% vote of the owners in Boca Chica?
I'm not prepared to say that this evening. I think we'd like to, if that was the will of the board, we'd like to do some homework and some research on that particular restriction to determine whether or not an ancillary hotel use could fall within a golf course facility, and there may be some case law and some other research we can do on that one.
And what about a clubhouse? I'm sorry.
So does that not contradict the fact that there was a hotel on that property previously before the prior owner years ago?
It may not. I want to pull some of the history. Like I said, the hotel in particular, I want to pull some of the history related to that particular location. I know what the restrictions say now. I don't know what they may have said at the time that development ultimately occurred. But I'm not suggesting that would be in conflict with the restriction, but we would want to research that particular issue a little further.
Just one further question. During the workshop, there was extreme interest by several city councilmen regarding parcel G there that was vacant, and there's questions about what our plans were that, and we, as Craig said, we just have had some chatter, but nothing really specific about use of that property. So would something like a brewery that Councilman Thompson suggested would be compatible with that, or are we looking at, and if we made that into a golf shop, could we have a brewery on that property? I guess what I'm looking for is at some point we may have to consider all options, as what Craig said, and those options include putting something on there that may not exactly be compatible. I'd like to know what our course would be.
And to your point, Commissioner, one other thing I would like to learn a little more about is what parcel G actually entails. The restriction I'm looking at here is specific for the Boca Chica Golf Course. There's a legal description. I don't know to what extent the parcel G description would overlap with this particular restriction. So as the conversation unfolds, we want to do a little more research to find out whether or not it would be considered a permitted use under these particular limitations, assuming the limitations apply to that particular portion.
Karen, would you like to, I'm sorry. Would you like to do the whiteboard or in the terms?
Sure.
Okay. Steve, you good with it?
Yeah, just one comment. The sense that I get from members of city council is they're not really interested in anything else but a replication of the 9-hole golf course and Winter Park times 2. It's almost like this is what they have their mindset on, and they have no interest in any further discussion or compromise. So I'm wondering whether doing this whiteboard may not be an exercise in futility. I'm all for it. I'll participate, give you my ideas, such as they are, but I think we need to bear this in mind. I'm very disappointed because, as Barry mentioned, last year, they were all for it. They were going to give us money out of the proceeds from the sale of bulk immunity. And I thought we were basically good to go. And now it's kind of like, yeah, but no.
Well, I think once they hear from Tom and Wayne and the team and their compelling information that they've got regarding the Winter Park 9, I think that they will maybe change their minds.
I hope you're right.
Bob, you good with it?
With Erin doing the whiteboard? Sure, she's,
Oh, no, right, Brianne's gonna do it.
okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's what somebody volunteered you to do that.
No, I meant that we were gonna do it. Sorry. Okay, so why don't we start on page 7 and go through the exercise of the city contributing 20 million to the construction, district pays the design fees, and any construction costs exceeding 20 million. The city will have oversight, but I'd like to see a change to all major changes to design during construction to be agreed upon by both parties. District continues to pay the bond, and the operation and maintenance, the golf course is anticipated to run as an enterprise fund. The city can operate and maintain the golf course to mutually agreed upon standards established by Southern Hills, which is Price Fazio. The district will have the opportunity to hire at its expense outside management to oversee the golf course operations and maintenance programs. Profits and losses will be shared at a 55-45. It's district city rate. 55 is district percentage. What other changes would you like to see in there, if any?
Let me jump in here. Having listened to the workshop, I spent time there while Craig was giving his presentation. I thought Craig did a masterful job of controlling the conversation to the extent that the answers that he came back with, I thought were a lot of cases just exceptionally right to the point. I never could understand after watching this how the council could have an objection, maybe other than the financial part, but the design, which is what we've been asking for. I thought Tommy and Wayne did a tremendous job in answering their questions. And as Craig said, the questions that they were asking him were the same questions we asked ourselves. And while I understand that we could have done a better job of communicating with the city on where we were, I know that the city council had, or city management had representatives here at the meeting that could carry back the message. But I'll still give them a little cover by the fact that they may not have known that our information is on the website, because I've been talking with one of the councilmen. They asked the question, when did this get on the website? And so a lot of them probably didn't know that we were broadcasting or had a YouTube clip on our website. With that being said, and the statements by at least 2, maybe 3 members of council that they wanted to take over the golf course. I struggled with that because I don't know where this is going to go, because one of the comments that were made at the closing by Mayor Singer was that they were going to bring in consultants to evaluate what we've spent a year evaluating. I feel real comfortable with the design. I feel real comfortable with our architect. I feel like we hired the best out there, the best qualified. And then to turn this project over to the city to have the oversight of construction and continue and to operate the golf course. I got a taste of what that would be like by watching the council meeting. I don't see how in the world 10 people can agree to a change in any construction designs. I certainly could not agree to changing the golf course architect. And unless we were to strike this project management, say the district will have oversight of construction, I couldn't support either one of these two term sheets.
So you like the third option, the blank one?
Yes,
That we should fill in the blanks.
exactly.
Okay. Steve?
I'd have to go along with Commissioner Rollins. We're already getting bad press. There was an article on Boca magazine, which, as much as I like and respect Brandon Schultz, distorted the facts. He couldn't understand why, after asking for $20 million, that we're asking for a 55-45 split in our favor, and totally ignoring the fact that we're responsible for 24 million out of the total of then 44 million, which comes to approximately a 55-45 split. That aside, I think we need to go back and start all over again and try and figure out what to do and come up with something that gives our sense of what of our vision, our sense of what we worked so hard with Price Fazio, with members of the community to come up with. And, there's been maybe not so much blood, but a lot of sweat and a lot of effort and a lot of discussion. And we need to put in the fruits of those discussions, what we've come up with. And maybe if the city doesn't like it, we need to rethink how we're going to go about our relationship with the city as far as the golf course is concerned.
Okay.
One final comment.
Absolutely.
I moved here in 1977 and into the city of Boca Raton, began paying taxes. In 1982, the city purchased and developed Boca Municipal. And I don't know what the cost was. I know what the expenses were over those time, but my taxes have supported that golf course throughout the years. Even though I was not really a very active golfer, I was busy raising kids and starting a business, but I was happy to support the recreational needs of the community with my taxes. The recreational return that we're now looking at, a $65 million return from the sale of Boca Municipal, should come back into a recreation amenity, and that recreation amenity would be the Boca Mtg golf course, known as Boca National. To me, that only makes good sense. I've supported that recreation amenity, expecting those dollars to come back into a recreation amenity, and it's disappointing to know that we're having to deal with this financial issue that could impact other projects that we may have. I think the three things that the city is, besides the abandonment of Jeffrey Street, which Craig cleared that up quickly, the design is something we've been asking for. The finances hasn't been a stumbling block, and of course the operations. And with no disrespect for those at Boca Municipal who maintain the course to the best of their ability, I think that with appropriate oversight by the district, we can improve on how the course is maintained and be a credit to this community, which I'm proud to live in. But this community deserves a golf course that people will want to come back into play. The course that Councilman Thompson mentioned in Winter Park. I've read the reviews, and I commend Andy for being original with that idea. But even when I was talking to someone about the needs assessment just recently, they were aware and know that golf course, and their comment was, "It's just not Boca. It works well in Winter Park, but it would not work well here at Boca Raton." So how we get around the financial part of this is, like Greg said, everything's on the table. And I think the one that I see is the most promising is the sale proceeds from the sale of the Boca Municipal Golf Course should be used to fund the development and kick off the operation of Boca Municipal. That's all I would say.
Thanks, Bob. Erin?
Well, I think the term sheet seems to target what we're looking for. I feel like it targets a mutually agreed upon design, which is what we're all looking for. I think that council just needs time to meet with Wayne and Tom to go over that. They didn't have the time, they could have gone on the YouTube page, right, if they didn't know about it. I think Andy has had a loud voice in talking about Winter Park. I didn't feel like the other 4 council members necessarily agreed with him in any way. I think they listened to him. But I don't think they were into the Winter Park 9 as much as he was or anything like that. I think they're open to listening to what Tom and Wayne have to say. And I think Tom talking to them will be a huge influence. And even with Andy as well, like Andy wants this huge family thing. I don't think he understands though that our east side that's what it's targeting. And that I don't think he also understands that the 18 holes is targeting the golfers and that the golfers need that. That's what they're asking for. So I feel like we're giving important things on both sides. And once they understand that, and once they have the time to understand that, I think that they'll be okay with our design. They'll be, I hope, anyway. But I think that I'm okay with this term sheet, and I've always said that I feel like the city should be putting the portion of the 65 million to the golf course. And I think 20 million is what they should be putting. I don't know if they'll agree to that. I'm hoping that they do, but I mean, I feel like they also want to see us put money towards it too, more than what we already have. But I do feel like they need to put a huge amount towards the golf course. So it's a difficult thing, but I agree with the term sheet that's outlined. Just not sure about the 20 million ask or the $15 million ask. I just feel like, I do feel like what you said though about giving them time is the most important thing, to get them to agree to what we've done in terms of the design. I think once we get there, then it'll be easier to work on the term sheet. You know what I mean?
Craig, thank you very much for stepping up for all of this and doing a very admirable job. It wasn't easy.
And I failed to indicate to Craig, I think we all supported that position that you took as far as giving the time. We did talk about that, so that was not a surprise at all. And I kind of supported that, given the fact that they may not have known that we had this information on the website. They may not have been getting information back from our meetings. And so give them that cover so that hopefully when we get back in July, they'll have met with Wayne and can see that this design, which I think offers the best for the golfers and for the community with family needs and so forth. From the east side with what we have there and to the 18 hole on the west side, I think it's a perfect plan.
Craig?
I guess what I want to add is that the time part of it was a component of it, but the real issue that we're talking about is buy-in. And what we could do this, pay as you go. We looked at different options, but without the city's buy-in, it just makes it a very slow, drag-down process. And I kind of put myself in their shoes as a big investor. They want to have a say in it. But what was enlightening to me at the meeting was there was a lack of consensus. And I think honestly, we had a lack of consensus too when we started, so it's a fair lack of consensus. We need to give them that window of time. So, you know, I honestly think if we look at, now we're into the middle of June, I think their meeting is, was it mentioned, is July 6th. Even if it's
Yeah.
second half of July, so by late July, they need to have some kind of consensus, and I think that's their deliverable of, you know, they have to call to a vote of what do they want. As far as the design goes, you know, we all learned as we went through that process. We could make this a very economic, friendly sand, you know, lots of, you know, non-grass things in there, but that slows down play, that costs rounds of golf, that there's trade-offs all the way through it. And we kind of learned through that process, thanks to Wayne and Art, who kind of walked us through it one by one. You know, I wanted to have a walking trail through it, and Wayne said, no, that's not going to happen because you get hit by golf balls. You know, you just have to learn those things. And so give them the time to learn it. I think it's a great design. I don't think it's unreasonable, 20 million. If you can spend 10.7 million on the Hillsborough El Rio Little Park, 20 million on 200 acres is just, you know, very reasonable. And I don't see the 1.9 million that keeps being thrown out there as feasible. That doesn't even buy the pump station. So if you're going to design a golf course, you have to have a pump station, you have to have a cart barn, you have to have some basic things. But they need to come to those conclusions on their own. So they have the next few, you know, months to do that. Meanwhile, for us, I think you need to get our ducks in a row for next steps, so that in August we go forward with working with them. I'm under the impression that they will work. You know, we've always said let's focus on the 18 holes. It's okay to look at the family-friendly driving range and everything else as a separate. Maybe that's where we start. I'm not adverse to that because I think that's where the real value is in the programming and doing things. I don't want to jumpstart it though. I want their buy-in. I want them engaged on this thing. And I do think we need someone from the city involved in the construction. But they have to come and tell us what they want. And then the bigger part of it is we also have to have priority to golf. And so I think the message I got from all of us was, there's no offense to the people at Boca Muni. I think they've done a great job with what they've had. But quite simply, golf was not a priority for Boca, and it was always on the agenda to sell that course. So you don't, you know, fully maintain things necessarily you're selling. So we want to have a priority of golf course. If the city can come up to that standard of we want priority of a golf course here, it will be a nice golf course. It'll be a beautiful golf course. It'll really help the residents of Boca Mtg. But it's going to take some time. So the term sheet is one of the things that we committed to doing. And could it change? That was the question that Scott asked. You know, he was asking about the 55-45 split. I honestly don't think it's that unreasonable because we're committed to 30 million already. We're in it. We paid, you know, over 2 bond payments into it plus design fees. So what are we into this thing for? 3 million? I think we need to know where the city stands in that. They're going to come back and give us an answer. I don't know what that number is going to be, and that's on them.
Well, why don't we start with investment amount and work our way down? So it seems like everybody wants to ask for 20 million. I mean, I'd like to ask for 30, but I know that's not going to happen. So
well, let me pose it slightly different for you. So we know the 20 million is the need. We've also heard that they are willing to take it over. Okay, so let's just flush out this conversation. That if they said they were going to take it over, are you going to stop on the bond payment, or you're going to get them to forgive that bond payment?
What do you mean take it over when you say take it over?
If they literally were going to take, if we said, look, they designed, they agreed on upon a you know, golf course the same as what we've already laid out. They have to get consensus. I'm leaving that to them, whatever that consensus is. But if we all agreed on that, and they said they wanted to take it over, because I've heard in the prior meetings they were willing to do that.
but our constituents don't want us to do that. That I've heard very vocally that they don't want us to just hand it over to
And
the
that's
city.
why do you think they want that?
Because we do beautiful parks and we do beautiful projects and we get them done.
Okay.
Look how long the pump project's taken. I mean, I know it's not any individual's fault, but now we're looking at a new design for Gumbo Limbo, and are those pumps gonna just have to be torn out? You know, it's kind of a scary thing.
But my point to that, Susie, would be, can we put in this term sheet the option that they take it over with the agreed upon, standard? In business, we have these customer service level agreements. That meets your requirements, so we don't need to do it if they're delivering what we all agreed to. Is that possible? And I know you guys have more of a history here than I do with it.
Go for it, Bob.
Well, I have a history because I spent 10 years on the Parks and Recreation Board. And at that time, we were talking about Hillsborough re-up. And here we are, 35 years later, it's just now getting done. Wildflower property was purchased about 10 years ago. And we're still, I think they're in the master plan phase on that. And I don't need to be critical because priorities change with them like they do with us. Even Woodlands was talked about putting down sports turf, believe it or not, years ago. And it was supposed to have been graded out and resided because there's a drainage issue over there, and that still wasn't done. I think that we have a history of doing our projects. And I think that's what the public knows, is that when we say we're going to do something, there may be some valid cost overruns, but we get the project done. We're sitting in one that we completed Spanish River Fields to Hornley. We were asked to finish that project up, and we did under the city's budgeted amount. So I think we have a history of developing nice projects, as Chairman Vogelsang said, and I think that's the reason why I'm reluctant to turn this loose, because I know they have some skin in the game, but recreation is such a small component of part of what they do, and I don't want to get lost in the shuffle. Although, I'd rather the golfers be complaining to them than to us about the delay. But I really believe that if we could work out the financing aspect of this project, we will be able to get this project done. I don't like the phasing aspect of it either. I've already said that. But there's other options. And I know Greg pronouncement here, fiscal conservative, and no one likes an increased tax rate. We had a millage increase when we purchased this property, and for the very reason to purchase this property and to pay for it. And by golly, the next year we had two commissioners run for election and they got reelected. So I know there's some threat with that concern, and I don't take that statement lightly. I'm not suggesting that's where we are to do that, but I'm saying if we're going to consider all options, we need to consider that as an option.
Okay, so we're back to the investment amount. Are we is it your pleasure to ask them for 20 million? 15 million, another amount? Craig?
No, I think we stick with the 20 million. That's what we need. That's the project cost. And I think we all agree that comes with the 55-45 split. They were kind of looking for, well, what is it if we take over? So, and I don't think our answer was, we're not interested in a takeover because you don't have the priority to golf. We have the priority to golf, and we want to remain in control of it. So there is no lower amount. If they say how about 10 million? What does that get you? Are you willing to give them something more or less than 45%? I mean, I think to me, it's just a financial decision.
I think we just have to go with the number and ask.
So right now, I think.
Jacob, do we need a motion for each one of these?
The board's intention is to walk through each of these items, and there's consensus on each component of the term sheet. Once you concluded that process, you want to make a motion to adopt the entire term sheet, assuming you have consensus on each item as you move down the line.
Okay, so Aaron, are you good with 20 million? See?
Reluctantly, but yeah.
Well, we want to hear from you. You're part of this
Well,
team.
here's the thing. The city at one point or city members of city council at one point made a verbal commitment to use some of the proceeds from the sale of the Welcome Muni. And really, they're getting to keep right now. If we ask for 20 million and they give us 20 million, they're getting to, they'll be keeping 2/3 of the sale of Welcome Muni. My feeling is, if they're true to their word, they finance the entirety of the construction of the course. Having said that, I recognize that that's not going to happen. So recognizing that that's not going to happen, and trying to look at it realistically, I'll go with the 20 million.
Okay, well,
I'm good.
and I'm good with it as well. So let's move on to additional fees. The district will pay all design fees for Southern Hills, which is Price Fazio, a construction costs that exceed 20 million. Greg?
I'm good.
Good, Aaron? Bob?
Good.
Okay, me too. Project management. City will have oversight of construction project per a mutually agreed upon design. All major changes, it would be my wish to have all major changes to design during construction will be agreed upon by both parties. If we go to small changes in the design, we're going to probably see this when my great-grandchildren are around. Craig, how do you feel about the project management?
As far as city will have oversight construction for mutually agreed upon design, all changes designed during construction will be agreed upon by both parties. I think they want to have oversight of it because of the 20 million, if we agreed upon the design. So I think that's acceptable to me.
Aaron?
Me as well.
Steve?
Provided that they accept the design, again, reluctantly, I'll go along with it.
So should we put a caveat in there that the design that we have presented?
I would suggest at the very beginning, the design must be mutually agreed upon by both boards.
Okay. Well,
What is so special about the city having oversight of a construction project? I mean, I know they have staff, but I don't know how many on staff have built a golf course lately. And it would seem to me that having the district have oversight, we can't provide the oversight ourselves, but we would certainly hire somebody that could. And I think that's my feeling is that if we're going to get this project done, we're going to have to be in the driver's seat. And hopefully we'll be able to explain, and Wayne and Tommy can have conversations with the council that can explain the rationale behind the design. But my concern is too, is that having listened to Tommy and Wayne make their presentation, I thought they were spot on with everything, but yet there was still some concern about the design, or should I say the lack of some planning with some of the empty spaces that were there. And I just think that, we have a credible record of having oversight of our construction projects, and I don't want to have the city involved in that position.
I see your point. And looking back on this, does anybody want to reconsider? I mean, we do good parks, and having had so much experience with this design process, and being open-minded about it and hearing, you know, Wayne and Tom have made adjustments per our instructions because of the costs and everything. I think we have such a good relationship with them, and they know the right people to put in to the oversight on our part. I agree with Bob that the district should have the oversight. Not that the city's going to go along with it, but this is what I'd like to put in the ask as far as I'm concerned. So we might have to have a vote on this one. Erin, you?
I was just gonna say, I'm good with the city having oversight, but maybe we could, put in there something along the lines of, considering, well, I mean, we only have 3 staff members, but having, district staff be an integral part of the project management, of the golf course, specifically Brianne, and possibly Melissa. I'm not sure how that would work, but it would be something that we could put in there to be a part of the project management of the golf course.
Well, I think we need a professional. Wayne, would you like to speak to that?
Well, to be honest with you, if an issue comes up and we ask Melissa, no disrespect to Melissa or anybody in this room, if we ask them their opinion for an answer, then they will get one. So I think that typically on the golf course project, we manage the contractor, we approve the payments, and then we liaise with the accounting department to what is being approved, what should be paid, what work has been done, what materials have been used, and where we stand in the project in terms of the schedule and that. So there's very much a reporting process from ourselves, and then you would incorporate a lot of that. You can incorporate a lot of the onus onto the contract, depending on how you write your contract, so that up front you're in for 20 million, and they have to deliver the 20 million.
What would the reporting hierarchy be?
Well, in that case, your contractor is responsible for delivering those set of items. There's an 18-hole golf course, R3, the plans, the specifications, and he would undertake to deliver those to you at a certain price.
See?
Not to exceed that price.
It's common sense that we have the person with the most experience building golf courses, if not in charge, having an integral voice, and that's me. Of all of us, the city, the Board of Commissioners, our staff, their staff, Wayne has got more experience building golf courses than all of us combined. So I understand that the city wants to be in charge. I understand that that may very well be a condition of this agreement that they won't budge from. But there has to be something in there. And it's, like I said, it's common sense. They may have experience in construction of buildings, building baseball fields, infrastructure projects, but when push comes to shove, they don't have any experience building a golf course. There's nobody there that has that. Wayne has that experience. And I think in any, whatever we come out with, Wayne should be a part of it.
Well, that's true, but are we going to be the point people with Wayne as our point person, or would it have to be a caveat that if the city did have oversight, that they would have to utilize Wayne and his team?
I think we should make it a point that that Wayne and his team should be a part of this.
Okay. And we've also got Mr. Kosky, so he's on our team too.
Can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
So for project management purposes, just view it as the city and the district will agree upon mutually acceptable project manager, which can be either city or district appointed or contracted, as well as complying with all of the state and city financial controls.
Very good suggestion, Craig.
No.
Well, we certainly can start with that, you know, I think that give them an option, and if they come back and say, no, they want full oversight, then, you know, I would object to that. But I'd written in joint oversight, I don't know how that would work. If you had joint oversight, it could be a little complicated.
You need, I think Wayne needs direction from one person, and whoever that is, if we both agree that here is a true expert on construction management, that he can bounce ideas off of relative to that, I think we're done.
Julian, did you get that comment that Greg made? Read that back.
I don't know how, he said that a mutually acceptable project manager between the city and the district.
Could you repeat it, Craig?
I will. I have the city and the district shall mutually agree on a project manager. Is essentially the language that Commissioner Ernst read for the record.
With the financial controls to the state.
Yes, so it's subject to compliance of all, you know, state and local procurement requirements, financial requirements, et cetera.
Okay.
From the city's perspective, and our perspective too, I think we just want to be sure that there's good financial controls over the doling out of work and the timing of the work, and that it's completed.
Well, and Wayne will see to that, and so will Mr. Kosky, so I think we're good there. Ownership, district continues to pay the bond on the west side of the property. Title of the property will be transferred to the district for terms established in the current ILA. Bob, are you good with that? Steve?
Yeah.
Aaron? Craig? Me too. Okay, moving right along. Operation and maintenance. Golf course is anticipated to run as an enterprise fund. Brianne, would you like to clarify that to the public, please?
Well, an enterprise fund for the city, the current golf course is an enterprise fund. So what that means is basically it pays for itself.
Good explanation. The city can operate and maintain the golf course to mutually agreed upon standards established by Southern Hills / Price Fazio. District will have the opportunity to hire at its expense outside management to oversee the golf course operations and maintenance programs. Anybody have a problem with that? Greg?
No.
Aaron? Steve? Bob?
Once again, you know, where it says city can operate and maintain golf course to mutually agreed upon standards. That standard is met. I'm in agreement with that. Just would hope that it would be. Otherwise, how does this district will have the opportunity to hire at its expense outside management team to oversee golf operations and maintenance programs? What would that involve?
Wayne, you and I have discussed this, that somebody would come in and bring in a team.
Well, I think, you know, you have various options, obviously, but I think one of them is that you could hire directly, so it would be the fourth member of your staff, and they would oversee the management company or whoever else is selected to run the operations of the golf club. So that you would have that intermediary between yourself and that company or group of people.
And this is separate from the superintendent, correct?
It could be the same, you know, you could hire the club manager, a club manager, and the superintendent. And then they would oversee both sides of the operation of the golf course. And then it would depend. They could either hire their own staff so that you would have now a bigger staff, or you could have a management company come in and they would be that intermediary between yourself and the management company. So that you've got somebody out there looking after your interests on a daily basis, reporting back to you et cetera.
So I have one question, wouldn't that get a bit confusing though, if we're hiring the management company, they're overseeing the people working for the city maintaining the golf course? Wouldn't that get a little difficult? They would be telling the golf course maintenance people what to do, but they would be we would hire them, but they would be working for the city. Right.
Somebody has to tell them what to do, but, it may as well be you. But it's. a
Right, but
similar-
the city staff works for the city.
Well, I'm not
That's
saying
right.
that it's the people, whoever that entity may have been. I don't know what that's gonna look like in 2 or 3 years' time. But they have a similar setup in Austria, where they have, they hire golf professionals, and golf managers, or club managers, and those people oversee the contracts that that are in place to manage that golf course. So there they use I think it's Brightview. So Brightview is the third party, the party that oversees the maintenance of that golf course.
Right, but Brightview's still hired by the county and the workers are still working for the county.
Yeah.
All
so
under
it's-
one entity is what I'm saying. So I'm just confused on how it would work with the management company working under us and then the staff working under the city. Do you see that? Does anybody else see?
If I could just quickly, the reason I wrote that in there and suggested is that, if we felt like the golf course was not being met to the standard established by Southern Hills, then I wrote that in there so that you guys would have the opportunity to hire somebody outside to come in and say, no, these standards aren't actually being met. Let's get this back up to speed. So that was the suggestion. That's why that was written as a combination. Just as a
Let me
suggestion.
offer an addendum to that, is that when we were looking at originally a master ILA agreement that the city presented to us, the verbiage in there was something to the extent that if you're not maintaining these to the city standards, then we're going to take it over and bill you for it. I think that what we should have in there is some clause in there that says, if they're not meeting these standards, we'll take over the management and of the operation. That way there needs to be something in there that gives us some teeth that says if it's not being maintained to mutually agreed standards, that we can do something about it. We can take that over. We're looking at it as an enterprise fund with the city participating in the share of the revenue and the expense. And so we'll bring it up to our standards, and the city will be paying a proportion of that expense by either a reduction in the revenue that we get, or paying in more because of the fact that we had to upgrade the course. It was being not maintained to the level that we thought was acceptable. Agree with that?
Craig,
Yeah, no,
that sounds good.
I'm good. I think what you're saying is in the beginning, you do need to have design agreed upon and maintenance standards agreed upon. So it's
Absolutely.
kind of a defined term, whatever that is, so that should come with Wayne's input.
Right, and then if it's not being maintained to that level, then we take over that operation and supervision, that maintenance, and bring it up to that level, I'd be satisfied with that.
And that is already in the ILA.
Well, not in the ILA that we signed for the funds, but when we were talking about several years ago about the master ILA, combining all the ILAs, that was one of the conditions in there that says if you don't maintain it to our standards, then we're going to upgrade and bill you for it.
Okay. Erin, are you good? Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, I am too.
So city operates to mutually agreed standards, and if they're not, then we take over.
Okay.
Yes, but I think, Brian, as a defined term, you want to have the design of the course, and another one is maintenance, ongoing maintenance standards.
Okay.
And that will tie it all together.
Okay, our last item is the profit and losses shall be shared at a 55 district, 45 city rate. Steve?
I'm good.
Erin? Craig?
I'm good.
Me too.
One item that we didn't address that I think we should put as another defined term is future investment, because we took off the table for purposes of going forward the tunnel, the clubhouse,
as well as the additional parcels that are available for additional use. So I think somehow we need to at least carve them out, decide upon. So one would be for future investment. Presently, the tunnel and the clubhouse have not been addressed. That the parties split that cost. That's what we want to say. I don't know. Just bring that up. Is it 55-45? Is it? I don't think we've ever come to discussion or agreement on that.
Hopefully we'll be making a profit and we could take it out of the profits.
Well, that's a good option. So I think we could put the money towards, a reserve. That's a good point. So the profit and loss should allocate a reserve fund for purposes of future investment into the community and the course.
Maybe you want to address that more specifically, like you're suggesting, perhaps saying that future amenity might include a clubhouse and a tunnel, and participation with the city would be the same capital investment as mentioned here.
That's what I was initially thinking, but I personally like the idea of once you start this, it's like a homeowners association. You need to have a reserve for ongoing costs, which is somewhat, I think, lacking in our current. We do it. We are the reserve for the municipal projects of recreation. So we need to have it specific to the golf course, so it doesn't, 30 years from now, it's not a poorly maintained course. Just a thought.
It's good thought.
I think that all gets into the green fees that we're talking about too, because
It does.
we need to be able to recapture the revenue to have that reserve going forward. And and we had talked about also having the fee structure so that we'd be happy to break even.
Right.
And I think so long as you're not losing money, I'd be happy to break it even. But you have to get the fees to the point where you can make that reserve. So I'm just wondering if you wouldn't want to be.
Well, we could say that. I mean, if the goal here is to break even, that's fine. You want to say that or
No.
no?
I'm just saying that I would be satisfied if 1 year we broke even, and in no years did we lose money. But it'd be nice to put some money back into, because you're going to have to recapitalize this as a project that's over anyway. So having a reserve, I think, is very important, and it's going to largely be upon how fine-tuned we run the expenses and how the revenue and the support that we get from the east side and whatever parcel, right?
So do you want? My point is, do you want to address? Right now, we're giving everyone, we're sharing in the profit and losses. So on the Rosie side, we think we make a profit. Do you want to say that you're going to reserve for future investment, or you just want to not address it and say future investment will be 55-45?
Why don't we address it now and just say that, I don't know how you want to say that, but, there should be some comment about a profit should be plowed back into a reserve for future plans, which might include a clubhouse or a tunnel.
Okay. So.
Real wordsmith.
Okay.
Yeah,
I gotta think about
You're on the roll,
this.
Chris.
If I might,
Absolutely.
maybe just say profit and losses will be shared at this ratio. Any future investment will be shared at a like ratio, with the proviso that in a like ratio, profits are put into a reserve fund. So we'll take the lion's share of the reserve fund, putting in, let's say we make $100 million profit the first year. Somebody spiked my water. But whatever profit we make, just to take a round number, first year we make $1 million. So we're going to take 550,000. City's going to take 450,000 and put it into a reserve fund.
Part.
Members of the board, you and the city in the type of agreement that you are contemplating are acting as in the investment world, an equity lender. And in an equity lender type of investment, the first thing you do is get back the money you put in. So rather than worrying about 50%, 45%, you should be looking at provisions in this agreement that allow you to get back all of your investment in the project, and the city gets back their investment in the project. And once that is done, you can then talk about splitting the profits. But in order to make it fair, you're actually loaning money for this project. You want to get your principal amount back. Saying that this, they're putting in 20, they want to get their 20 back. You're putting in 34, you want to get your 34 back before any of the profits are split. That is the customary way that an equity in a golf course project would operate. I can tell you that from personal experience.
So we would be expecting that rebuttal from the city if we did anything else, if we put any other language in it about future investments.
Well, the future investment would be handled under a separate provision, but you're going to put in, you've already got $5 million of your own money yet. You're going to reimburse the revenue bonds that have been issued by the city. The city is going to put in $20 million loan. You should be getting back your 5 and your contribution to pay off that $19 million bond. And the city should be getting back that 20 million first, before you even talk about splitting the profits, to put you back where you were when you began, as a lender putting money into the project. And then split the profit in any way you want afterwards, be it 50-50, 90-10. It's immaterial. What's material is getting back the money that you're investing into the project.
Thank you, Mr. Konsky. Aaron?
Yeah.
I like the idea. It leaves us clean, but it may take a while until we're repaid. And in that time, we still have to consider capital improvements to the golf course. And that money's got to come from somewhere.
And that comes from you. If it comes from some of the money that you have gotten back, then you can reuse it. There's nothing to say that your return on your initial investment cannot be used for an enhancement or improvement of the facility, or if you're not getting anything back, you may have to dip into your pocket again.
That's what I want to make sure there's money for, and that's capital improvements. Because if we're going to build a clubhouse at some point down the road, if it's 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, we have to make sure we have the money, and there has to be a path to that money. Same thing with the tunnel. There has to be a path to that money. We have to know how we're going to get it before we commit to it. And these are commitments, I would think, based on the feedback I'm getting from the community. These are things that the community wants. So I'm all for your idea. I think it's great. Let's get clean, get our money back. But I think the trajectory is going to be on $24 million, might be 25 or 30 years or more.
Well, it
depends on the amount of profit, the amount of surplus that your project is generating. Before you classify it as a profit or a loss, you need to get back what you invest into the project, and then to determine how you're going to distribute your profit.
Erin?
I was gonna say, investing in any park or beach, you never really get you never get your money back, right? I mean, you're never really making money off of a park. Yes, this is a golf course, and we're hoping to break even the first few years, I think. If we make a profit, I think it makes sense to take that money and put it back into the course and the things that the community is asking for, such as a clubhouse or a tunnel, if that's something that's needed down the line. So hopefully there is a profit that we can put aside. And I think that makes sense.
Well, I think what Art's saying is we can take what we get back and then reinvest it back into our, community, into the project.
The capital investment into the project to be shared by the participants in the project.
Is it just a way of moving money around, or is it, I mean, it's kind of hard to, for us non-entrepreneurs to grasp it.
You will know exactly to the penny how much money you will have invested in this project, as will the city.
So I think what you're saying, Art, is we don't have to worry about the reserve. You just leave it as profit and loss, and then you address future investment as.
I don't like the word profit and loss
Okay.
in city government. I'd rather use the term surplus.
Surplus. Yeah.
If you're making a surplus, then you divide that surplus between the entities in order to get you back as quickly as possible to where you were before the project began. And if a quarter of the way along or halfway along, you find a need for more capital, then you may draw upon that reimbursement that you got. You may seek another source for that capital, but to say that you're going to rely upon the profit of the entity to go back into the project, the capital improvements, is certainly not the way to do it.
So Art, how would you state that, to say that surplus at the end of the fiscal year, or that would be shared at the.
First used to reimburse the parties on a pro rata basis as to their investment in the project. And after that is paid, then the project surplus will be shared in whatever percentage you agree upon.
And the loss shared in the same manner.
The loss is going to have to be shared in the same manner.
Is there another preferred term, since we don't use profit, we use surplus, how about loss? Is there a different term for that? Or is it
Deficit.
deficit? Okay. Thank you.
If it's an enterprise fund, it is a profit and loss. An enterprise fund runs just like a business. Okay, I mean, you have the city's water and sewer fund is an enterprise fund. The golf course is an enterprise fund, but it basically runs as a business. So you have sales. When we've seen Osprey's reports that we've seen from Palm Beach County, we have seen where they have made substantial income. There's no reason that you couldn't share that income, like you talked about in here. But it is actually income, not surplus. Surplus is what you have in a governmental fund, like the general fund that supports the general city's operations. But when you have an enterprise fund, you talk profit and loss, but you're talking just like a corporation, basically. Okay, and it should be able to stand on its own. You could have a city move money into it, or you could move money into it if you expect to get that money back.
Well, we have never operated.
Yeah, we have operated as a governmental fund on our segments. We have never really had an enterprise fund.
We
But
have
the
this
city,
set up to run as a, right
we're
now.
not set up to run as this. The district is not set up because you receive tax dollars, which are government, actually a governmental fund. because you're getting revenue from that. But you actually have an enterprise fund that's going to have the sales. If you have inventory as well, you have cost of goods sold, then you come down to a basically profit or loss kind of statement. It pretty much runs just like a business. If you go to the city's financial statements now, you'll see their golf course is run as an enterprise fund. It comes down, it has retained earnings, it has fixed assets, the fixed assets will depreciate, that type of thing. So it's much run like a business.
We have it in the term sheet as operating as an enterprise fund. If we want to remove that, we can go with the regular government fund, but if we keep that, then we'll probably use the profit and loss language.
Are there any elements in the enabling legislation that preclude us from having an enterprise fund?
No,
No,
it's simply a mechanism of fairness between the parties. If you put in 100 units, just as an exaggeration, and the city put in 1 million, why would you be worried about who gets 50% and who gets 45% of the profits? What you want is, as soon as possible, your investment back. The city would want their investment. Then you can truly operate on a profit or surplus type basis.
Oh, did you have something? Okay.
I mean, I don't think it really matters. I mean, they're both really saying the same thing, so.
The terminology could be the same, but the concept is getting back your investment first
Correct.
before anything else.
So do we want to leave this at a 55-45 and just say future investments, amenities will be shared? And not give a directive as far as how that profit is kept or surplus is kept?
I think it's just keep it as is. We don't have to worry about that. So that we're just saying the profit is 55-45. We're not setting up a reserve. The reserve is addressed by the operations. So there's additional landscaping, different things. What we're not addressing is significant capital investment. And I think we just leave it as 55-45 as well.
So if we want to do the tunnel or the clubhouse, it would be 55-45.
That would be my suggestion.
Aaron, what do you think?
I think putting that on there is gonna make the city probably nervous because they're gonna say, oh, well, you're gonna come back for more money. But we're showing that we're doing this as partners, 55-45. So I think it's fair enough to put it in there. I just think they're gonna have an issue with it probably.
Well, what it comes down to is right now, given $20 million as a city's investment, just for argument's sake, and 24 million as ours between our cash purchase and the financial obligation we undertook in repaying the city's bond. It comes out to roughly 55-45. So going forward, what we're saying is we'll continue. We have skin in the game. We're not asking you to come up with, say, the entirety of $2 million for a tunnel or the entirety of $3 million for a clubhouse. We're saying we're going to come up with the majority of the money. And as our partners, you're also going to come up with a percentage of it. But we're going to come up with the majority of the money.
One point though, Steve, what we presented in the letter to the city, Jake correctly pointed out to me the city's contribution is 20 million, but we also need to specify what we contributed towards it. And so at the time of our discussion at the workshop, I looked at our total cost of participating in this project is the debt service plus the interest. That is 23 million, plus our purchase of the other side, which is 5 million. And then you have design fees, et cetera. We, the district, are in this thing right now, anticipating that we pay all our bond payments. And mind you, that the city, I reiterate, has loaned us their credit rating very generously, so we were able to get a very low interest rate. So our all-in cost is $29,737,016. So, and that's to me, I'm looking at not only what we paid, but also our commitment to what we signed up for. So my point to the city would be is that they have not committed anything yet. They have not spent design fees. They have not done anything. We reimburse them for all their expenses on everything they participated for financing. So what we're asking for is the $20 million contribution to get that.
So are you asking to include that, show our investment now?
We should. We should definitely show our investment and their investment.
Good point. Aaron, did you have something?
Yeah, I think we should, because for some reason, I get the feeling that Mayor Singer doesn't see, we got a loan through the bond from them, but he doesn't see that as we haven't paid that yet. So I feel like he doesn't see that as our investment on our side for some reason. So we definitely should put that number in there so we can see that as what we paid.
Merv, can you create something that will let the city see, what we have already contributed and what we anticipate as far as our debt service?
Yeah, I think
That
Greg
would be
even
very
had,
helpful.
What was presented to him does have that, and there is a loan schedule. And Aaron, I hate to correct you because I know you're always spot on, but I want to make the point, we have made 2 loan payments and they're both $1 million plus, so we're already in this thing. And we're on, I thought you said, either maybe it was Steve who said we didn't make them.
I said that we had a total financial obligation plus purchase, and I gave a total number. Not that we haven't paid anything.
Okay. Presently, we have paid $1.6 million.
Okay, so are
Plus the
we
$5 million.
going to amend this investment out to include that in the statement, or are we going to do it in another fashion?
We should amend it to include approximately, as we have in there for 20 million, we should say the district is already committed to approximately 30 million, I think.
Good idea. Thank you, Jacob, for coming up with this.
It is 64, yeah. Yes.
Okay, so is there anything else you would like to put in this term sheet since we're going forward?
On the bottom there, Rhiannon?
Oh, future investments, future amenities, clubhouse tunnel will be 55-45. We didn't settle on that. I don't know if the reason we don't.
But just say if it's mutually agreed upon.
Do we not want to name the amenities?
Okay, take out the amendments. Okay.
Including but not limited to, possibly. That's why I get the big bucks.
Chair,
Yes.
I think that Jacob has given any thought to dispute resolution.
Arbitration.
I don't think we can.
What I would suggest is if we have the operational business terms presented as we're working through one by one, I think dispute resolution, indemnification, and some of the other legal provisions we'll be able to work through with the city attorney's office, come back with some language that would hope the board and the city council both find agreeable.
Okay. That good? Okay. So at this point, if there is nothing else that you want to insert in this term agreement, we need a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept the term sheet that we've just developed.
A second.
Discussion? Let's talk about it now, or forever hold our peace. Okay, all in favor of the
Question,
term?
question before you.
Yes,
go.
sir. Thank you.
I know it's sometime down the road, but there will be a time when you will own 100% of this entity, this property. How will you then divide expenses? Do you absorb 100% of the expenses? Do you get 100% of the profit?
Good point. What is traditional in a case like this is
Everybody gets their money back and
whack it up, whatever, you could reach a percentage between the two. And somebody's gonna have an overbearing amount of expense directly related to the amount of property that you have under your ownership.
So are you suggesting keeping it 50-50 in the future? I mean, are you suggesting that just keeping the profit loss 50-50 in the future, 55-45 after you recovered all your capital?
I think that would depend upon I would like to see it, because if I were on the city, I'd be saying, well, you own 100% of the property, you should pay 100% of the expense. And if everybody is agreeable that they want to be a true partnership, or it's 50-50 type of arrangement, then all expenses going in after you acquire all of the property should be 50%, and all money coming out should be 50%.
Right, I think I'm just thinking 55-45 after it's paid back. Start there.
I'm thinking that really, we're looking, what, 15 years down the road at least? Okay. All right, so we made 2 payments, so 18 years down the road. We don't know what the circumstances and conditions will be 18 years from now. So maybe we should leave that open until such time as we've reached a certain horizon on the payments, and then it can be negotiated.
I wish we had done that with the CRA. But I think if we can do it now, do it now. The time will go by. You will be here soon.
No, I won't be here. I'll be sitting somewhere in the audience wondering where I am.
Whenever you encounter a problem, try to solve it right
It's a good point. Right.
So you have 2 options. You're either going to have at the completion of all debt service and repayment of capital, the ownership is presently structured to go completely over to the district. So the profit and loss can go completely over to the district at such time, or you can have 55-45, or you can have something else. What's your pleasure?
now. All district, as long as the city has had all of their capital investment returned.
So upon completion of payment of all capital, both parties' capital, the ownership and the profit, future profit and loss goes to the district. Does that make sense?
Just to play devil's advocate for a second. The city now says, okay, we've gotten a repayment, and it's bringing a point that aren't made before. We want to see some of the profit. So we're not going to accept that 100% of the profit goes to the district once the debt service is paid. If we're paying 100% of the expenses, I'm not going to argue with that. It's just a matter of, has their capital been repaid? Has their capital investment been repaid? We don't know what that profit structure will be 20 years from now. I'll be sitting with you, Steve.
Unless attitudes change, the city would love to be out of the golf business.
So
Early comments.
structure it so that once both parties' investments have been repaid, the district will take responsibility, 100% responsibility for operations and maintenance and surplus.
It's just like we do with all of our.
Thank you for that. So we still have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All in favor of the term sheet, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. Thank you all. That was, yeah, okay. Is anyone interested in going to the phasing plan since we've come to this? Steve? Craig? Erin shaking her head no. Bob?
I don't see the point. I think we come back.
Okay. How about item number 3, the Ford and Associates engagement letter? Jacob, would you like to explain this to everyone?
Sure. Just very briefly, if I may. In your packet, there is a proposed engagement letter from Ford and Associates. Principal is Jerry Ford. I'll give you one moment. We pull that up. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
15. Mr. Ford, he's a financial advisor, represents a number of local governments throughout the state of Florida, including a number of special districts, independent districts such as our own. They've submitted a proposal, essentially a two-part proposal, one regarding initial services that will advise the district on a number of different funding and finance options that may otherwise be available to us. The second component to the process would be to essentially implement any of the services that the board ultimately wanted to pursue. They would really give the board a whole panoply of options, both from a bond perspective, a variety of different revenue options that may be available. They would help develop strategies, both with bond counsel, with our office as the board's legal counsel, to implement a financing plan. In the event that the district were to seek finances through the city, they would assist the district in evaluating any of the city's terms and conditions related to those financing options. They would evaluate any proposals, pricing information that the city were to provide, or any third-party funding opportunity would provide, and provide the district with guidance as to how best to structure any lending opportunities, any financing opportunities, and assist the district in going through that process. It's really a one-stop shop, essentially, to assist in all of our financing options and opportunities that may be available to the district. I know that Mr. Ford has, I believe, represented the district in the past. It's not a new venture for them. They've been involved in a number of different times over the years representing the district, and this would essentially expand on the function, role, and responsibilities to assist specifically with financing for the golf course.
Thank you.
Jacob, I have a quick question. When I read on page 16, it talks about the initial scope of services does not include items related to financing issued by the district and not by the city. So is that, and we'd have to have another agreement, or there would be additional fees that said the district, the advisor will submit an amended scope of service and fee schedule for additional services related to such financing. So would that mean that we would have this 12-5 agreement, and then if we decide to do the financing ourselves, we'd have another amount to pay?
I don't want to speak for Mr. Ford and what their intentions would be. I know the initial scope, they contemplate being about $12,500, which would cover the bulleted items on the first page, on page 15 of your agenda packet. Those items would be covered within the initial scope. There's a separately hourly billed rate for additional work. And what you're suggesting, Commissioner, may fall within the separate hourly billed rate. It wouldn't necessarily require another fee engagement, but it may not be included within that initial scope.
You know, my concern would be that if the city did not agree to financing and we authorize this agreement, would that money that we committed to the 12-5 be then used for assisting us in our own financing option?
It's a fair question. I want Mr. Ford to weigh in on that particular option.
So Commissioners, should we table this for right now until Jacob has a chance to talk to Mr. Ford? Oh, Mark?
Normally, these kind of arrangements that you have, it's when you do a deal. When the deal closes, that's when you get billed. So you have to So you have to have a financing in place. And then when you close on the financing, so you issue $20 million in bonds, the city doesn't come forward. We issue $20 million, or they issue $20 million in bonds. They assist us through that process. And then at the end of it, that's when you pay it. Like we did on the last year, we paid Ford recently for their participation in advising us last year during the sale of the bonds the city had. They were our representative. The city has a financial advisor as well. They use public financial management in Orlando. But this is representing the district's interest in that deal, basically. Is how that works.
We had to have this person in place, I think that was a city requirement that we had.
Correct,
And
yeah,
hired this
right.
individual.
But they normally work. I mean, in some of the scenarios that we were in recently, I've been calling their office and they have been running them. You know, and they know they don't get paid until there's a deal. I mean, that's how these people work, so.
Suggestion, we probably will need them, but before we do this, can we just wait until we find out what the answer is? If the city does give us the 20 million, we don't need them. But if we're going out for public financing or we're looking at pay-as-you-go or other options, then we do need them. So right now, we just don't know if we need them unless you want to develop the option to have it more ready.
Well, we don't want to spend our taxpayers' money if we don't need to spend it.
Well, I may also offer, Madam Chair, so just as another option, if the board did not want to act on the item tonight, wanted to carry it over to your next meeting, we can have Mr. Ford and or his associate, Mr. Reed, available either in person or by phone to be able to answer any questions that the board like to ask.
Commissioners, do you agree with that, Craig? Aaron? Steve?
Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah.
Me too. Okay, so we'll, future agenda item for
Thank you.
July 1st is deferred. Okay, Brianne. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, before I think we're leaving the golf course, right?
Yeah, I didn't get any pars either.
Okay, so the one item that was in our package was the NGF consulting agreement.
Yes.
And so, as part of what we agreed to do is we're making the design team available. They asked about a detailed NGF report. And so Brianne has worked out a new arrangement with them for updating that report. I think that would be a good idea to proceed on.
So move. I make the motion that we accept the offer from NGF to update the study that they previously provided in accordance with our commitment to the city.
Do I hear a second? Okay, Mr. Ernst, second, Craig? All in favor, oh, is there any discussion? All in favor of asking NGF to do some more work for us, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign? Motion passes, Joanne. Okay, now, Brianne, the discussion for the budget.
Okay, let me turn the list here. City budget time is coming up. We have not received an official draft from the city as far as the details. Michael and I have discussed the budget from the city. We're working out some details and getting some questions answered. What I'd like to do, there's some delays because of the unexpected absence of the city manager right now, so they're working on getting that through him and getting it out to all of you. But what I'd like to do is go ahead and start scheduling. Michael and I want to meet one-on-one with each of you to go through the budget one-on-one and answer questions. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and start scheduling those for mid-July when I get back from vacation so that we have them ready to go and we'll sit and go over each of you.
Does that sound good? Do we need a motion on that, Jacob?
Motion to defer be appropriate, Madam Chair.
Do I hear a motion to have Brianne and Michael meet with each commissioner individually, privately?
So moved.
Do we hear a second? Okay, any discussion?
What's going to be the process? I mean, after we have this meeting, it's a major departure from what we've done before, so.
It is. The goal would be that Michael and I could sit and we could go through the budget line by line. We'll have them ahead of time before that meeting so you can get your questions, but just to smooth the process and when we come to the public meeting, talk about all the questions together and walk through it. The idea would be to get more in depth with each of you on the budget.
Well, if we're going to do that, I'd like to have the full version of the budget to review rather than an executive summary.
there will be the full budget.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. The artificial turf proposed change order, Melissa, would you address this? It's on page 21 of your agenda packet.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. As we work our way through the project of the artificial turf, we've come to a matter that needs some input from you as far as the direction you'd like to take. You'll see on page 21, I did a summary. If you were able to review that in advance, if not, I'd like to review it just quickly. If you'll turn to page 24 in your packet, you'll see a diagram of where there is green is the northeast field at Patrick Park. And there is a section of 20-foot high fence that goes as a U shape along the northern end of the northeast field. And in between the end line of the playing surface and where currently the way it's designed, where the curb, the playing turf curb is going to meet, there is some distance between the end of that curb and the fence. And in the current design, that is designed to be natural grass. The challenge with that is on a maintenance standpoint, where you've got to get a mower in a small strip all the way around that end of that northeastern field. The other challenge in that is if you get a mower in there, you're mowing it and you're throwing clips onto the field turf and into the organic fill that could cause weeds to grow in your turf in the future. So there's a couple of options we have. One option is there's currently no sprinkler system designed in that natural grass. So the most economical decision would be to put a sprinkler system, irrigation system in to water that natural grass. And then we would just need to have the maintenance people maintain that throughout the time. And that is at a price of $3,000. It's on page 28, $3,845.92. Another proposal is to put the playground turf that surrounds the other fields in there to have it match up. That is option number 2 on page 27 at a price of $41,568.99. And the other option is to go ahead and back that curb up to meet the fence and have your athletic turf go all the way to the fence. And that price tag is $25,469.87. Due to the maintenance, et cetera, I would heavily encourage the board to consider that option of taking the athletic turf all the way to the fence. That will help with the maintenance year in and year out, and also gives a little bit extra yardage there that could be utilized. Also, the reason why that is less expensive than the playground turf is because if you put the playground turf in there, you essentially have to have 2 nailer boards and 2 curbs to attach. So you're going to a curb and a nailer board for your athletic turf. You're putting more turf in and you have to put in another curb for your playground turf. And that's why the playground turf is actually more expensive to fill in there than the athletic turf. You will see on page 29 is my accounting for where we are at with this project right now, going through a payment application that has been submitted tonight for consideration. And then in the middle part, you'll see the general contingency of $160,000. And I have put, if you were to choose it, that option of taking the athletic turf to the fence in there and shown that we will still have approximately $100,000 of contingency remaining for the rest of the project. So my recommendation would be that we extend the athletic turf all the way to the field, to the fence.
So that's the $25,000 option. And how far away from completion are we, Melissa?
We are on the the southeast and southwest field. We're looking at the southeast field being completed hopefully by the end of July is when right now it's on schedule for. They're actually thinking they could be close to putting turf in next week. But the turf company would like to come out at such time that by the time they're done putting turf on that, they're ready to immediately go to the southwest field. So that may back that up a little bit, but the southwest field is scheduled to be done August 20th. So both southwest and southeast by August 20th, this is what we really needed for the football season, with substantial completion of the entire project for September 20th.
Melissa, on the west side of that northeast field, there looks like there's a perimeter there. Is that also, is that turf as well, or is that grass?
I'm sorry, Bob, where was that again? I'm
Yeah, on
sorry.
the north field, if you're looking at looking north and to your left there, where you've got in front of the bleachers, there's a strip that runs alongside the turf field. Is that also sports turf, or is that grass that's going to be cut and maintained because there is a sprinkler system there?
On the outside of that fence, is that what you're talking about?
No, it's in between the. I'm looking at the what appears to be the perimeter of this northeast field. There's a line that runs down the sheet on the left-hand side, and in between there and the shrubbery that you have on the left there, it looks like there's is that part of the field? Got it. Right here.
No, that would be, I'm sorry, that would be turf.
Okay. Then I would.
That would be athletic, yes, that would be athletic.
Okay, what I was referring to, commissioners, was the strip on the left. If it's athletic turf, there's no reason why we couldn't do the same, shouldn't do the same thing on the east side of that field. And I make a motion, we accept.
Is it east or north?
On the northeast field.
Yeah, but north,
It's a U shape all the way around it.
yeah.
So I'm proposing for the U shape all the way around. Have the
Right, so
athletic.
that's the, all the way around we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I make the motion that we accept proposal option number 1.
What is proposal option number 1?
For 25,000.
Oh, okay.
25,469.87. Discussion? All in favor of the proposal for option number 1, say aye. Aye, opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. Okay, Melissa, stay up there. Swim and Racket Center, proposed change order, page 31 on your agenda packet.
Commissioners, thank you for direction on that. I bring before you also again, please don't kill the messenger, but I bring before you a nasty order of change orders for the MDS on the Swim and Racket Center. I will say, when Michael Fischero had stopped working on this project at the end of April when he left us, and I have taken over as your project contact for this project in that time. If you'll notice, I have not come before you ever before with a change order on this project, and I will say there have been some proposals that have come before us that we have found creative ways to address so that we did not have to come back to the board asking for additional revenue. These two, one of these is an outstanding item, which you may remember from previously. And then one is the same type of item that has been incurred due to delays that have happened since the time of the last one.
What pages are those, please?
The actual change orders are on pages 45 and 47. So what they are asking for is, I asked for them in support of this. On page 42, you'll see a list of delays beyond, in their opinion, beyond their control for MDS. So I asked them to put together this for you so you could take a look at it. So on page 42 is a list of delays. We got to the back page and I did say he had 173. I called him out and said some of these are duplicate days. So that's where you'll see that we went through and counted the duplicate days and minus 33 days for a total number of delays of 140 days on the project that they're proposing are beyond their control. So what do we do in this situation? I've looked at the contract and you'll see on page 32, I had Jacob review this with us as well. And the contract addresses this. I wrote a nice little breakdown on page 34. We signed a contract with MDS on the 20th of October in 17. Part of that contract incorporated the project manual. On page 47 of the project manual, we required that a superintendent be employed to oversee the project. And obviously, as part of their process, a contractor will put that into their process and make it part of their lump sum, the price that they think that will be. The amount of time that was identified for this project was 365 days. So when MDS would have considered their hiring of their superintendent, et cetera, and put in the cost it would do and the lump sum, they would consider that for 365 days. That means anything over that is what they're now asking for. So the delays that we have 140 days take us beyond that 365 days. So the question is, how do we handle that? So on page 50 of the manual, which I've also included, I wanted to give you everything, so let me find page number for you. On page 44 of your information, you'll see item number 19.3A. For all labor and foreman in direct charge of authorized operation, the contractor shall receive the current local rate of wages to be agreed upon in writing before starting such work for each hour that said labor and foreman are actually engaged thereon, to which shall be added an amount equal to 15% of the sum thereof, which shall be considered and accepted as full compensation for general supervision and the furnishing of small tools and miscellaneous equipment use, et cetera, et cetera. So what they're saying is, according to this contract, we would need to pay them for this extra work that's done, extra work 140 days. What this comes down to, in my interpretation, and I asked Jacob, and Jacob, please speak up if I misrepresent anything, is that he's in agreement that we do need to pay them. The question is, how much do we need to pay them? So they are proposing, if you look at page, I'm sorry, it's not page, in your folder on the left-hand side, I put in a sheet called MDS Change Order Request. Can anybody find a copy of that? On the top part of that is the two work orders, change orders that they've submitted combined. So combined, they're asking for $67,200. If you look below, I've outlined what the contract allows them to ask for. Supervision and project management, they have a contract total. If you look at the very second page of that information, I've highlighted for you what we have agreed to, not only in this lump sum price of a price of $244,660 for their supervision and project management, but it's what we've signed off for on each of our pay applications as we've gone through as an approved value. So on the front page, you'll see I put that in there. I divided it by the length of the contract for 365 days. And came out with a daily rate of $670.30. They're requesting that reimbursement for 96 days for a total expense of $64,348.93. In addition, on that page 50, I told you, you remember they're able to add up to 15%. So if you add that 15%, you come up with a new total, and I am more than happy for anybody to check my math because I am not a mathematician. But I come up with $74,001.27, which is actually more than what they are requesting payment for. The things we could do is we could go back through the days that they've requested reimbursement that they've said was delays beyond their control, and we could look at each of those days, and you as a board could decide whether we really do interpret that as something that is beyond their control. I did that, in my opinion, for you. I did not give them credit for 140 days, but I did come up with 128 days unduplicated. Again, they are only asking for 96 days worth of reimbursement. In addition to that, we have to agree in advance to what that labor rate is. We were not asked in advance to agree to that. So therefore, the board can consider what they would consider a fair labor rate for that. In trying to help do that, I actually called one contractor and then I did some internet searching. I came up with a rate of somewhere between $50 and $70 per hour. I used 60 to work through this and jumped right in the middle. We would still owe them more than what they were asking for. In addition, I did ask Jacob briefly what would happen if we tried to give them less than this $670 per day that we kind of are signing off on each pay application and saying is okay. To me, I think we kind of have said that is a blessing of a fair rate. Again, Jacob, you can address that if you would like to.
Very briefly, if I may, and Melissa, Bree, and I have had a number of opportunities to discuss this over the past couple of days. And, Sam and I went back and revisited all of the provisions regarding the change orders. The issue here really is one of math. the bid specs and the contract that we have with MBS very clearly outlines our obligations in the context of change orders, changes of work, and whether or not we're obligated to pay. And based on the information we have, it's fairly clear that there were change orders requested, the process was followed. The issue then becomes of applying the methodology to the work that was performed. Melissa, we've gone back and we haven't checked all of her math, but we've gone through the process that she utilized to apply that work to the methodology. We have no legal issues with her approach. I think it's sound, I think it's rational and reasonable. Just the question only becomes whether or not the board wants to accept staff's recommendation, authorize that payment, or go back and revisit the math and the methodology as to how it was applied. But from our perspective, from a legal obligation, based on the contract and the work performed, there is an obligation to pay the vendor something. The question is whether or not the amount that's been requested is consistent with the methodology that's provided for in the contract.
So, since we do not have, in your opinion and Melissa's opinion, a specific dollar amount that you feel is absolutely accurate, should we have Murph go through these numbers?
From a legal perspective, I can tell you there is an obligation. What that obligation is, I think that's the open issue. And
Right.
operationally, and then Melissa spent quite a bit of time checking the math and going through the proposal and what was requested. I don't have any issues. We want to have a second set of eyes on that, but we're very comfortable with the process that she utilized to reach the conclusion that she did.
Okay, I may ask, Jacob, what would be your feelings on if we were to try to negotiate a price lower than the price that they have had in each of their pay applications for that same work?
I don't have an issue negotiating what the number is, assuming there's a basis for.
Mine's off, turn mine off.
Well, assuming there's a basis for negotiation, I don't have any issue contacting the vendor and asking them to either justify their number with greater specificity or try to negotiate to a lesser number. But at the end of the day, I do believe there is an obligation to make some payment. The question is how much.
On the 15%, do they submit receipts for those incidentals? That's $10,000.
Well, the incidentals we're not obligated to pay.
It says for miscellaneous small tools.
Right, we're not obligated, that's within that 15%. No, they're not obligated. The way I would interpret that, I am obviously not the attorney here, Jacob is, so I would defer to him. But to me, that would be covered under the 15% they're allowed to add, so therefore they're not required to give invoices or receipts for that.
Do they have other documentation? If we have already established a standard of $670 a day, I'm okay with that. But what I would like is to see documentation, timesheets, other records that they have establishing that they had people on site, that they had supervision on site, and then go from there. But just to say, well, all right, this is what we came up with. It could very well be that they were on site for 50 of those 96 days in total hours. Or they were on site for 110 of those 96, 110 days instead of 96. Whatever the case, I know for myself, having hired people to, on-site contractors, I've always asked for timesheets. I've always asked for documentation if I'm paying by the hour. So I'd like to see that before I okay any payment.
I will say these are salaried employees, these two people, because once you make over the certain amount, they don't get paid overtime, so they're not hourly employees. So that's why we calculate up the per day rate.
But
I'll just talk in a
I'm sorry, you're typed out.
Even for salaried people, there's some kind of record as to where they are over the course of the day. If they're working, for myself, I have a calendar that I set up in Outlook. So if people want to know what I'm doing, it's in my Outlook calendar. There must be some kind of other documentation that they were here. I understand what you're saying about them being salaried and not having to check in and check out, but there's some kind of documentation as to where they were, Were they on site for that period of time? Were they someplace else? That's all I'm interested in knowing.
I'm happy to ask them for that documentation. I don't know what form it might come into. I would also remind you this is that, you know, when there's a delay in these projects, this is not a job-wide delay. So you may or you may not know this, so I'm not trying to offend anybody, but when there's a delay in the project, it's not like the entire job shuts down, because you have electricians on site, you have drywall people on site, you have painters on site, AC people on site. So when you have a delay in one area of the project, it doesn't mean work comes to a halt. So somebody's showing up here and not doing anything or not having to show up here. They're still having to come here because there's still tradesmen that are doing other parts of the work. So they're still having to come up and go through that process. And one of the things we have done now, Steve, is we are currently still in a delay because of FPL. FPL had committed to have the power turn on to the maintenance building by the 31st of May. They came out on the 30th and the power went off to this building and they were replacing a transformer. The superintendent actually went out to them from MDS and said, excuse me, I think you're replacing the wrong transformer. You're supposed to, this is what we need over here. No, this is the right one. We're going to get to you guys next. The very next day, we called to find out, okay, it's the end of May. Where's this transformer you promised us? And they had installed it at the wrong location, even though MDS pointed out to them. So when we said, when are we going to get that now? Their answer was 3 weeks, another 3-week delay. So we've handled that. But what I will tell you is during that time, I've worked with MDS now, and we are not going to be charged these because there's not as much work going on now. So now therefore, their people are not here all the time, and we're not racking up more bills. This is it. But during this time, there was more work going on, so the foremans were still here.
I understand what you're saying, but if they're charging us for additional supervision, they have to have a record of that additional supervision, and that's all I'm asking for.
I'll be happy to ask them what kind of recommendation. I don't know because it's not their, I don't know what their work schedule will look at. I'll be honest with you because I've never been a contractor, so I don't know when they have salaried employees. Obviously, they would have days that they took a vacation day. But other than that, you don't have a record of me being here other than there being a vacation day form filled out.
Well, I imagine that if they're off their premise, there's a record of where they are if they're supervisory personnel. And again, that's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, Melissa, thank you for the work that you went through and the explanation that you provided for us. I feel pretty comfortable with your request at 67.2. Unless you feel like that you have some more negotiating that you can do with these individuals, you know, I'd be comfortable accepting your request. What's your feeling?
Listen, I'll be honest with you. I understand the frustration of the project. I've told Brianne, I do understand that there are some things that definitely could be done better in this project, and I think by all parties involved, honestly. My recommendation is that we go forward with this, and here's why. I'm not trying to let them off easy. I truly am not. But I think that we have a risk that they're unhappy with any decision we make. As I mentioned, they're billing us for 96 of these hours. I believe there could be more out there they could come forward with. And I believe we might end up paying a higher price if it were to go. I think that our liability is greater than what they are asking for. What I might recommend is we sign off on this, is that we get them to sign off on something, even though they verbally told me that we only sign off and agree to this if they will agree that we will take on no more supervisory fees going forward from this point of these payments.
Commissioners, I would like to make a recommendation that we approve staff's request with the proviso that it's agreed that there will be no additional supervisory days that are incurred when we sign off on this.
Is that a motion, Mr. Rollins?
Yes, it is. Second.
Any more discussion? Right.
For the benefit of Steve, you know, I pose these questions to in blistering emails between Melissa, Jacob, and Brianne, myself, and came to the conclusion that Melissa has picked up the ball and ran with it, where it was already looked at once. You already got the second review, and although there's a lack of somewhat accountability, the only way that gives me comfort with it is with the condition that Melissa mentioned. There's no more supervisory type transactional things, no more miscellaneous tool charges, and they get out of here.
Melissa, if we don't go forward with this, just hypothetically, would that delay the opening and the final?
I don't know that it will delay the opening. I don't know what all would be involved if they were to try to have some kind of legal action against us, which I think that would happen. So I don't know what that would do in delays. Jacob could probably address that as well. And I also want to follow up with Steve too, if I could. I'm still happy to move forward with getting that accountability. In addition to, even if you vote to go forward, I'm still happy to get that accountability and share it with you when we next convene.
I'd like to add, and I should add, I'm in no way disparaging anything that you've done. I think you've done a fantastic job, not only with this, but overall. It's just,
we're on the same page. It's understood, but thank you for that. But, I want, it's important to me, the board knows I'm not up here championing for MDS. I really called Jacob because I want to keep us out of a situation where there will be some kind of claim against the building, et cetera, and do what's best going forward and giving you guys the information that we have.
like I said, I'm not averse to paying, and I understand that we have a legal obligation, and all in favor of fulfilling that legal obligation. And maybe, I'm dotting more I's and crossing more T's than there are. But I would feel more comfortable, especially in light of the history on this project. I'd feel more comfortable knowing that we're giving them what they should be getting as opposed to more than they should be getting.
Any more discussion? All in favor of approving the MDS amount of $67,200 with the caveat that there will be no more supervisory costs incurred, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joey. Steve's opposed. Thank you, Steve. That was too quick. Okay, Melissa, you're the star tonight. Number 7, district batting cages, page 49.
Okay, Commissioners, once again, I thank you, and I need to have your feedback on another item with some requests from the community. It was brought before us to consider renovation of the batting cages. At the meeting where we discussed the RFPs that came back, I was asked to please go forward and talk to both the Little League about their willingness to contribute to the project. So on page 49, I've given you a summary of what the results were of the RFP information, and I've also given you a recommendation that I would like to put before you to renovate the batting cages for the district. Especially, I would point you to page 50. Alex Schultz, the president of Boca Little League, addresses the safety risks that have happened out there and the numerous young people that have been hit by ricochet balls. They do have an insurance policy that covers that, but insurance is one thing, and having young people get hurt under facilities we have is a whole other thing. So with that, my recommendation is that we do renovate these, but I do recommend that we renovate them in phases so that we're not taking the brunt on all at one time. Boca Little League is willing to support for $12,000 towards the project. They have requested, it's not contingent upon this, but they have requested if we would put a sign up saying that these batting cages are sponsored with a partnership between the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District and Boca Raton Little League. In addition, on page 451, you'll see an email from Merv chiming in and also recommending that if we go forward with this, that we do a phasing of it and that we accept the payment for Boca Little League in the first phase of that. And again, that Merv's email is on page 51. Also on page 57, there is an email from Kevin Beckman. Kevin is with athletics with the city. I also asked him to chime in on what the phasing plan would be as far as the city's preference go. And as you can see, Kevin was on board with what myself if we do the phasing plan of which ones would come first, he would be on the same page where we would do the Sugar Sand Fields the first year, Patrick Park the second year, and then the second set of Sugar Sand Park cages the last year. And as a reminder, I just put in there page 55 and 56. Page 55 is as our current cages are right now. You will see the side support poles. And on page 56 is what we are proposing to construct, which has those side support poles, which then reduces the amount of ricochet that you can get.
Quickly, I think if we decide to go forward and accept the donation from Boca Little League, I would suggest maybe we have Jacob write up an MOU with them just to memorialize the understanding. If they want me or.
I have a question, Jacob. If we, I'm happy to accept their money, but I don't want to create a liability issue for them if there's a sign there that says, this is a joint project between Little League and the district. I'd be happy to put that sign up there, but I think it's going to work. Somebody, a third party, get into a liability claim, I think, and while they may be successful in defeating that motion, I do want them to be aware of this possibility.
And it would be, they would need to agree, obviously, to the language, and then they have their independent counsel take a look at that language and recommend against it to their board. An MOU would be a bi-party agreement. They would sign off on, they would approve as well. So I think that's a very fair point. And if their name is on those batting pages and somebody gets hurt out there, there's an incident, it very well may open them up to some exposure.
Commissioners, how do you want to proceed with this?
Move to accept Melissa's recommendation.
As the phasing?
Yeah, that
Okay,
one phase.
so we would start with phase one, Sugar's Sand Park quad cages for $115,000. Are we going to accept the,
Madam Chair, may I address this for one moment?
go ahead.
This is a very dangerous precedent for all of the youth sports. On behalf of Sabre, we do not want to be in a situation where it's expected the youth sports groups are paying for the goals, are paying for equipment that's normally provided. And it was, in my opinion, a mistake for Little League to offer it. It could be a mistake for the district to change policy by accepting this offer from Little League, let alone the liability issues, whether the sign is posted or not. The private sports group that contributes to the facilities could be held liable. I would recommend that you vote against this. You probably should have accepted the contribution and taken the full brunt up for $12,000 avoid a policy change.
Jacob, would you weigh in on this, please?
Madam Chair, Board, I understand Mr. Starkoff's comments. I think they're very well taken. I think he makes a very fair point. I think it's ultimately a policy decision for the board. I don't have any issue drafting an MOU to accept the donation to provide for some naming rights. I think those are all within the board's purview, all within your discretion. I think the question comes down to whether or not it's a decision the board wants to make and go in that direction.
Okay, have we had a second to this yet?
One other thought though is, Earl, I mean, baseline in our bylaws says that we can take gifts or donations, so I don't see what's wrong with taking the $12,000 donation.
Steve?
I'm just raising the concern that it's specific to this purpose. You may have the same situation with a $500,000 contribution to the facility in Gumbo.
I think that's addressed in the
It may be,
MOU, so I wouldn't.
I appreciate,
I think we should
appreciate
take
the chance that I can speak to the depth of this slippery slope.
Steve?
I would also add that this in no way, at least in my opinion, sets a precedent for the mandatory donation on the part of any youth athletic organization that's involved with the Beach and Park District. That's entirely up to the organization, and I, for one, wouldn't request any organization to furnish money for any equipment, field, or anything else aside from what they're already doing if they're paying for field time, which I don't think they are. But, you know, I wouldn't ask, especially not Sabre, especially. I don't want you running after me.
In the past, the district has accepted gifts and donations. We took, I think, $40,000 from the Rotary when the carousel was installed. So it has been something that has been done.
Greg?
I'm perfectly fine with the accepting of the donation. I think Earl's point's well taken. It's all in the, I guess, the agreement and the naming. So that would address, the other aspect to me would be important, as long as you're doing these standing cages, that the liability language of who's using them, there's something signage that is appropriate and it's reviewed, designating that the liability of everything is with the user and those around him.
I do, if I may, just want to make one point very clear. One thing that we would not do, unless you're in an MOU, is indemnify Little League. Just as a local governmental agency, we're afforded sovereign immunity. There's certain limitations in the context of our liability. So we may do many things as it relates to the naming and the limited partnership, but we would not indemnify the Little League and put our sovereign immunity or limits on our own liability at risk.
Thank you, Jacob.
Just real quick too, I just want to clarify that they're not asking for the cages to be named after them. They're simply asking for a plaque to go up saying that they're renovated in a partnership with local Little League. So it's not the actual naming of the cages.
It's still a liability issue.
Agreed, I just want to clarify.
In deference to my long-time friend, Mr. Starkov, I see the contribution by Alex Schultz and his group is, a friendly suggestion to move this project along, and because it was in a previous budget, and this year, we're finally getting around to it. So I don't see this as being anything that's setting a precedent, because it's not something we would normally require of a youth sports group. We're doing furnishing equipment and so forth. It was a donation they suggested. We didn't ask. So.
It's true. We won't, don't worry. So as the motion stands, it would be to do phase one for $115,000 and accept the donation from Boca Little League. There was no second.
Second.
Okay. So any more discussion? Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Any more discussion?
We'll be back in a moment.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign? Yay. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Craig, page 58, approval of invoices and payroll.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the invoices, $840,318.17. We want to note in there that we are now entering Mr. Costa's contract on a monthly basis, which is duly noted in that agreement.
For a second,
Second.
discussion?
Yeah, I think we should have a discussion on that, on Mr. Costy's monthly fee, renewal, whatever you want to call it. Does anybody have any input on that? I feel like, we're getting into discussions with the city on what's going to be happening with the golf course, and we did put in there that project manager would be agreed upon between us and the city. And I do believe that Brianne does most of the communication between us and the city at this point. Wayne does the project management on the Price Fazio team. So I'm not quite sure what is being done for, in terms of the project management for the $10,000 at this point in time. So I just wanted to bring that up because $10,000 is a large amount of money. And in terms of the project, since it has been going on, some things were promised, deadlines were given and missed. Communication hasn't been quite what it should be, I think. So I feel like that it's something that should be discussed at this point.
What are you asking for? Are you asking for an accountability of the money that's being spent?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really received any deliverables from Mr. Kosky at this point. I'm just wondering what at this point is his role in the golf course as project manager?
Craig?
Well, look, my view on Mr. Kosky, he has been the visionary who got us this far. We're going forward with the whole project, and I think it's important that he stays on board. And I'd be happy with at least extending the agreement for another 6 months, just like what we had now, because I think his advice and guidance in it, one way or another, is valuable, because we're going to enter interlocal agreements, we're going to enter some engineering agreements, and so he may not be the direct hands-on project manager on the project. We haven't decided. We don't have a project yet. We have to get the funding for it first, and I think we'll come to that decision of who's doing what on it. And I still think there is some role for him, so I definitely would like to have him on board if he's willing to do it.
Yeah, and I agree with Craig. Having worked with Art over the years and with his engineering background and his legal mind, not to mention the financial stewardship that he's assisted the district with. I think the role will continue, because I know I've continued to have conversations with Mr. Kosky regarding direction of the golf course, and I think I'll get to this on the commissioner's report, but I think there's a role in potential financing for Mr. Ernst and Mr. Kosky in developing financial information, or where if we're looking at all options, I think we need to consider an option of our own financing.
I think, I agree with Mr. Rollins, and Mr. Ernst. I think in view of the body, just not for anything else, but the body of knowledge that Mr. Kosky possesses with regard to the Beach and Park District, he's a very important resource for us. So going forward with the golf course, there's going to be a mutually agreed upon project manager. That may or may not be Mr. Kosky, but even if it isn't, I think it's important that he be retained for the board. And like I said, if for nothing else, just be able to use him as a resource, not only for the golf course, but for other matters, financial, legal, and otherwise, as he has for the last 40 years.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I do want to thank you, Mr. Kosky. You've been so helpful, and he still answers my phone calls at 6 a.m. So, Erin, would you be more comfortable if Mr. Kosky gave us a report of what he's been doing?
That'd be great.
Is everybody in agreement with that? Are you good with that?
I keep time slips for every day.
Okay.
Yeah, I could give them to you, show you that you're getting the mark, like everybody else. You okay with that, Aaron? If it shows excessive hours.
I'm just doing my job as,
Excellent.
taxpayer money is important, so it's important to just make sure it's done in the proper way.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. We have a motion that has been seconded to approve the invoices and payroll. Is there any more conversation, any more comment? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign? Okay. We now come to reports and discussion. Interim Executive Director Harms.
I actually have a list tonight. July 20th is going to be the ribbon cutting here. I put some cards on everybody's folder. They're also doing the open house of direct services here at Swim and Racket Center. 9:30 will be your all opportunity to cut the ribbon and show off this facility. Hopefully it will be CO'd in all the buildings by then, as long as FPL can get that transformer up. We got the draft of the audit over the weekend. Morgan is reviewing a couple of items. We're in good shape, I think, so far, so we'll hopefully have that wrapped up. Shade structures, some disappointing news there. Several weeks ago, you guys approved the design build for 178,668. 90,000 of that was for shade structures at DePoney Park. The city has come back and said I will say to Melissa's credit, she worked with the city on this RFP, recommended something that the city was behind. Unfortunately, the city has decided that since it's their park, they will run their own projects on their parks. So we will not be able to install those at Dormley Park. So that took us down to, on that project, down to $87,833. We will have the shade structures installed at Sugar Sand Park. The permitting should be done by June 24th, and we're hoping to have those up by August 12th, just in time for summer to wrap up, and they'll be ready for next year. An update on the funicular, we have worked on an MOU. The Friends has weighed in. We made some changes pending their input. We are waiting. We sent that to the city. I have not gotten a response back from the city on that MOU. So right now, I don't believe they are working with Michelle and I talked last week. I don't believe they're working on anything until we get that ironed out. So I'm following up and hoping to hear back from the city on that as soon as possible. So the Friends are waiting to launch their campaign to fill the other. We have the 250 commitment from one donor. They're waiting to launch the campaign until that MOU is finalized. Melissa is working on some police crime prevention walkthroughs at our facilities. The first one is going to be Thursday right here at Swim and Racket Center. She's invited the police to come through and walk through our buildings and give us some input on what we can do to make sure we're doing all that we can to prevent crime from happening here. On that note, it was suggested that we may want to look into having an off-duty police officer here at our meetings, similar to what City Council does for their meetings. If you guys want to do something like that, it's $42 per hour. There's a minimum of 3 hours, which seems to be the going length of our meetings nowadays, so we would meet that easily. And they also have a $5 admin fee. So if that's something you guys want to look into having at our meetings, that would be the price point, basically about $150 a meeting. Yes, correct. It was just suggested by outside, so I brought that up, and that's up to you guys to decide on. Yeah, with my heart's good. Several months ago, we approved the renovation of our websites. We have 6 websites right now, and we had approved 7 because we were going to design the golf course as part of that. Some of you guys met with the needs assessment folks in your second interviews. One of the main things that they pointed out, and it's something that we've been looking at as we've gone through this process of restructuring our websites, is simplifying what we have. So I'm recommending that we go from 6 to 3 sites. I'm recommending that we would combine the Willow Theater and Exploring with the Sugar Sand Park site. I know there would be some reluctance from staff, but I think it would be a good thing just to streamline our communication. We would umbrella the Swim and Racket Center, which gets very little traffic as it is underneath our website. Geographically, we're in the same place, so we could feature them prominently on their site, and then also Patch Reef. So our websites would be based geographically and not so much by different facilities. I think it reduces our liability as far as ADA goes. We'll get these sites delivered with ADA compatibility, but it will be up to staff to keep them updated and put information out there that's ADA compliant. So it reduces our risk for that and also just streamlines our communication. Is everybody comfortable with that decision? Okay, great. And then, as you guys know, the needs assessment started last week. I'm excited to hear what feedback they get from the city. I spoke with Nile today, and they're excited to work with the city. They were excited about all the interviews and the feedback that they've gotten. So we'll continue to provide information as that comes out. That's it. Jacob.
Madam Chair, thank you. I have nothing else to say.
I'm sorry, I have one more thing. Your financial disclosures, some of you got them here in your folders tonight, some get them delivered to the house. It's due by July 1st. Just a reminder.
If anybody has any questions completing your Form 1s, we're happy to give you them.
Okay. You don't have anything on Petrikowski, do you?
I know we've gone through the inventory placed on the first of the month. My understanding is at 3M0, along with my colleague Tracy DiCarlo, that they're in the process of clearing out whatever they've committed to clear out. Anything residual will be ours to essentially dispose of as we see fit, which we'll have a better sense of what that looks like on the 1st of August.
So the boat's gone.
No, there's nothing, we will get nothing of value.
Okay, commissioners, Mr. Rollins, would you like to start?
Sure would. Just going back, Craig, thank you for your analysis and presentation to the City Council in the workshop. I especially enjoyed the comparison between the purchases that we made and the purchases the city made, in spite of the fact that the Wildflowers waterfront property that was considerably more than what we're paying for green space that we're preserving. And I think that's an important notation. Just some other things to be thinking about is as we move forward to the next engagement with the city on this project, and Craig brought it up about the associations within Boca Chica agreeing to this, or maybe having some kind of an opportunity for them to weigh in. I know Harold's been here religiously, but I don't know whether everybody else is fully aware of what's going on. And if we need to do anything, the city council will make them aware of that. The other issue is the vacant parcels. I mean, if we're going to consider all options, maybe we need to be thinking about what option would be appropriate for that location, as I mentioned to Jacob. Scott Singer made a mention of have we considered all revenue sources? That was an indication to me that we may not get what we want from the city, and we should be looking at other revenue sources. And what would those revenue sources be? A potential revenue bond that we might negotiate with, say, Raymond James. And that's one of the things that I think where Jerry Ford could come in very handy with if we need to move forward with that. And I'm laying this out here for future consideration. I think it sometime in the very near future, we ought to put Craig and Arthur Koski on a plane or in a car and have them go over to Tampa and talk to Raymond James, who Art has contacts with, about what options we may have for borrowing. How much would they borrow? Not that we need to borrow whatever the full amount, but we may end up having to phase this project in. So I think we need to be aware of all the issues surrounding the golf course in terms of financing. And the other thing that was mentioned is by council person O'Rourke was the signage issue and some issues that from emails that she was getting from some folks that were naysayers about that. So probably should clear up some of these little tangential things that shouldn't be much of a problem to get around. But I'd like to get these cleared up before we go to another meeting with the city. And I thought it was interesting. Singer kind of summarized it at the end, saying, we want time to evaluate the project, as Craig had suggested, with help from Price Fazio. So he's open to that. I also mentioned giving the city manager the opportunity to reach out to a consultant and help him with market analysis, much like we have, and I guess reviewing the National Golf Foundation's plan. We didn't discuss it, but understanding the phasing plan, we may have to look at that at our next meeting as well. And then mentioned the staff getting together with the ILA, but I think it's premature for us to talk about something like that at this point. But now that we have the term sheet, maybe that will facilitate some additional conversation. So I thought some good points were raised at the council meeting. I thought also there's some complete misunderstanding of golf course operations that I thought were cleared up in my mind by Tommy Fazio and Wayne, and I still don't understand why the city is not recognizing those things that we talked about: sustainability, playability, natural, being natural. Which my golf balls are very seldom in the fairway anyway, but when you have to go looking for them, it just takes up a lot of time. So I think that we need to be thinking about these issues and doing some homework on those prior to the July meeting of the city council, so we can respond to those things. Thank you very much, Craig. I think you did a nice job.
Craig, when are you supposed to present the term sheet? How was that left? Sorry.
Look, I'm happy to present the second round if that's what you want. I kind of took it as a one time and done, but maybe not. So thank you. But I think that to Bob's point, there's some follow up both on the legal side, and I think there's an opportunity on the community side where we really have to go to Boca Chica and host something for them. And I think that will help at some point basically saying, look, the community agrees with this. 4 out of 5 city council agree with it. The one thing I would like to explore just a little bit, I think it was explored early on, but I just like to understand it. There is a market out there, as if you said, look, we have 200 acres of land, and hire a third party to look at it rather than us investing in doing it. We came to our conclusion, I think probably the right conclusion, but we didn't really fully explore it. I think Mr. Koski did, I think Wayne and them talked through it. I'd like to just better revisit that one. And specifically, there's a vendor out there that was talked to early on. And what they do is they do golf course management. There's a lot of pros and cons of doing that. So you're asking someone else, what would they do? What is the market for? And would they come in and you give them a 20-year lease? Now, that is not what we're building. We're building something that is, I think, very in the style of Boca and what we'd like, just like we like the Spanish River Fields. So I think it's appropriate, but I think that'd be worthy of looking into a little bit further. As far as the financing goes, I really would like to see the city be our partner because of the buy-in. I think it's so important to have them as part of it. And if they're not part of it, it's going to, if we go out and do things on our own, there is that risk that it's going to be the slowest project ever. And so that's my biggest concern of doing anything on our own. That said, I think we never really explored doing the east side as much as we could. And that would be a nice smoother transition for the existing golf course folks as a thought. So I'm not adverse to it. I just think that we can get ready for this, but I don't want to preempt them. I think we promised to give them time, and I do not want to surprise them. The things I got from Mr. Singer, or Mayor Singer, was do not surprise and give them the space they need to come to their decisions. I think we should do that.
Yeah, Greg, you mentioned something that has been, there's been some chatter on, to use your terminology, regarding the east side and developing that east side, which I know Wayne's been sharpening his pencil on the east side, so that we might take a look at getting that started. But we could probably fund that, next year, next fiscal year, and getting started. Wayne's already left, huh? Okay.
But let's give the city the opportunity to say what they're going to do or not going to do. I truly believe in the east side. That's why I was firmly supportive of the Fazio team. I thought it was creative and it's the direction of golf. I think it really satisfies a lot of what Councilman Thompson's been talking about. So to me, it is a good concept, but it is still a lot of money. And we should continue down our path of being ready for it.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Brianne to check with Wayne and see what a final number is for the east side, if there's one that's been refined more than originally.
I think they are working on one, but we'll get something concrete on paper.
So,
Are we able to go, since it is our property, we are able to proceed?
The short answer is yes. The ILA contemplates the property, which is the west side, the district's property, which is subject to the city's property and subject to the city's design approval. It also contemplates district acquired property, which is independent of the ILA that we have control of. That doesn't absolve us from the obligation to pursue city permits and city approvals for any work that we do on that parcel, but we can develop that parcel independent of the ILA.
Thank you. Steve? Aaron?
No, I agree with Craig on making sure we give the city the time to make their decision, and jumping the gun on our own, looking at our financing it ourselves and doing the east side is just gonna rub them the wrong way, and we don't want to do that. We want to give them the time to make that good decision. So that's that. Oh, and one thing about Mrs. Zuccaro made a comment last time he left, but about doing public comment after we have our agenda.
Well, he suggested we do public comment before and after, and each time he's, I guess Yvonne has asked him to come home.
Well, so I think it makes sense to do it after. So.
Well, there are a lot of people who come and they just want to come from the beginning of the meeting.
Before and after, I just feel like we talk about so much stuff during our meetings that to allow the public to comment after the fact, might be a good idea. Just an idea.
Thank you. Frank?
One item I'd like the board to consider is, we're at that time of year where we run into the summer and there's a lot of college students who are gainfully looking for internships, and I will say, just from approving the invoices and all the project work that's been going on, both from a website, from a lot of things that we're asking for, is to consider working with the city possibly to get through a city staff, I guess, or us hiring an internship, somewhat formalizing it for Brianne and Melissa and Joanne to work with this summer. And so if it worked out well, it's something they could do next year, but a paid internship is what I'm suggesting.
No, the city has an intern program. It's certainly something we can benefit from because we do have a lot going on. Sure.
I think so.
I do, but I feel like for this year it's kind of late.
If it's possible, I agree with you. We're running late, but different schools start at different times, so
Or yeah, you could always do fall and spring semesters as well.
let's just start it and let Brianne figure it out.
Well, let's get a job description and description of the internship arrangement, and maybe the city can give us a copy of that too in advance.
Yes.
I think it'd be good, especially to get somebody that is looking to go into this field, to park and recreation. It's a good field. And while I had the microphone, I'm not trying to upset the city with any of these suggestions, but I do want us to consider, keep this in mind, that we need to be thinking about options, revenue options, planning options, millage options. And we're still waiting on an appraisal on Ocean Strand as well. And I'm not saying that I would sell that to the public, but maybe that'd be a good thing for the city to take over that parcel and extinguish some debt that we have with it. So just thinking outside the box.
If I may, just on that point, Commissioner, Madam Chair, just very quickly, we did late today, and I should have mentioned this as part of the report, get an update from the appraiser. We do expect to have something back in Ocean Strand this week. We'll share that with you as soon as we have something about it.
Okay, I've got just a couple things. They're mostly for future agenda items. The RFP for the banking, Craig, how are we doing with that?
We're really close, just been very busy on other things, so it's.
Should we
Next
defer
meeting.
that to the next meeting or the second meeting in July?
We can do it the next meeting, it depends on Brianne. Okay.
And also Jacob and Sam have very graciously said that they would do a sunshine law presentation. I also want to caution the public, if you communicate with us, communicate individually, not in groups, because even texts or anything like that fall into the sunshine law. So I just don't want to get anybody in trouble. Just individually is fine for our emails and texts. Also, you all will be getting a survey from the city, regarding this needs assessment, and encourage your neighbors and friends to participate in this and make the golf course a priority, if you would. Any other future agenda items?
Yes, I have two items. The Friends of Gumbo Limbo would like to do a presentation just to talk about where they are with their master planning process. I'll talk to Michelle Field, but she had actually planned to be here tonight to speak in public comments, but she had some car troubles, so she couldn't make it to the meeting. So if we could put that as an agenda item for the next meeting. And it kind of goes in hand with the Luna project. Was a presentation that was done at the workshop prior to Commissioner Ernst's presentation. It's a recycling initiative. One of the members, which happens to be a name that you guys may know, Sophia Ernst, would like to come and do a presentation to us at the next meeting to talk about that and how we can incorporate that in our parks.
Any other agenda items?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.